Chapter 261. When Qin Fangfang married Sun Baiwen. Other than Sun Baiwen, who treated her sincerely, she did not have a good relationship with her mother-in-law and sister-in-law. Fortunately, Sun Baiwen had always been on his wife's side. Therefore, Qin Fangfang tolerated as much as she could until now. In spite of it, her sister-in-law was getting out of hand, criticizing her sister in front of Xiao Jian. Qin Fangfang was enraged. Usually, Qin Fangfang could treat it as if nothing had happened when Sun Baiyan gossiped. But it was really inexcusable to talk about adult matters in front of a child. Moreover, when Qin Fangfang saw Sun Baiyan criticizing Qin Yiru in front of Yun Jian, and in front of Yun Jian's friends, she was afraid that Yun Jian would be looked down upon by her friends. Because she was worried about Yun Jian, Qin Fangfang was truly angry with her sister-in-law for the first time. Sun Baiyan, if you dare spout nonsense in front of the children again, I'll break your tongue, Qin Fangfang said, looking like she was really going to hit Sun Baiyan. Sun Baiyan was terrified when she saw that Qin Fangfang was truly enraged. She quickly hid behind Zhu Hengxiang and tugged at the corner of the latter's shirt, shouting, "Oh my, she's rebelling. Mom, your daughter-in-law is getting bolder. She's going to hit her sister-in-law." She sounded like she was telling the truth. Sun Baiyan's husband Jiang Xingnan stood like he was not there, not daring to say a word. Zhu Hengxiang was on her daughter's side, of course. When she saw how Qin Fangfang was behaving, she did not care that she was in public and acted like a shrew. She pointed at Qin Fangfang and said, "Great! You're rebelling. How dare you hit my Yin Yan? You!" Just as Zhu Hengxiang was about to explode, Yun Jian shielded Qin Fangfang behind her and told Zhu Hengxiang and her friends, "Arguments aren't allowed during the auto show. If you make a ruckus again, get lost." Yun Jian's words made their eyelids twitch. Only Zhang Xiaofeng and his friends stood aside and watched. They knew that those who offended Yun Jian would not end well. "Who do you think you are?" Zhu Hengxiang shouted without thinking. Her shout was so loud that it attracted the attention of a group of big bosses who were watching the auto show. "Are we supposed to leave just because you told us to?" Zhu Hengxiang continued to curse Yun Jian loudly. Her words were getting worse and worse. "Why don't you take a look at yourself? Don't act like you're the supervisor of an auto show. Aren't you just the daughter of a cleaning lady in New Cruise? Heh, look at your poor and pedantic appearance. What right do you have to tell us to scram?" At this moment, Zhu Hengxiang seemed to have forgotten that the reason they were able to participate in the auto show was because of the disdainful cleaning auntie that she had mentioned. Biting the hand that feeds you is nothing more than this. "Mom, stop talking. You've gone too far." Sun Baiwen couldn't help but frown when he heard that. He stood up and said to Zhu Hengxiang. At that moment, a middle-aged man's voice cut through the air with a hint of anger and boldness. "Because Yun Jian is the director of New Cruise and the founder of this auto show, don't tell me she doesn't have the right to chase all of you away when you're not even invited to the auto show." Zhang Jifan, who had just witnessed the scene, stomped over angrily from afar. How dare she slander their sister Jian? This old hag must be tired of living. However, after hearing Zhang Jifan's words, the surrounding people all stared at the plainly dressed young lady with their tongues tied. Zhang Xiaofeng, Chen Sini, and Ling Yichen were dumbfounded. Qin Fangfang and Sun Baiwen were stunned. Zhu Hengxiang and Sun Baiyan, on the other hand, were ashen-faced when they heard that. What? New Cruise's director was Yun Jian? Chapter 262. Shock aside, Zhang Jifan was already standing in front of Yun Jian by the time the crowd recovered. Zhang Jifan, who was dressed in a suit and leather shoes, was completely different from the gangster who made a living by lending money to loan sharks. All these changes were bestowed upon him by Yun Jian. Zhang Jifan went to Yun Jian and bowed at Yun Jian, calling out, "Sister Jian." His greeting was an announcement to everyone present that she, Yun Jian, was the director of New Cruise. There was no one else. It was not an empty promise. The crowd snapped out of their shock. Ha ha ha. A deep chuckle was heard. What came into everyone's view was Mayor Gu's smiling face. "Little girl, we meet again. I really didn't expect that you would be the one who organized the auto show this time. You're New Cruise's director." Mayor Gu exclaimed before he seemed to recall something and exclaimed, No wonder you bought a storefront that wasn't worth that much at the auction the last time with a whopping 14 million yuan. So it's to start a company. Forget where Yun Jian's money came from. Her purchase of a storefront for more than 10 million yuan was the height of stupidity in other people's eyes. Even Mayor Gu could not wrap his head around it. Now he knew. 10 million yuan aside, the storefront was definitely worth it if it was used well. Yun Jian used it to organize an auto show and publicize the company's name. Rich bosses would then come to buy cars. In this day and age, as long as the company's name was made known, even billionaires from other provinces would come here just to buy branded cars. What did some bosses use their money for? To buy branded cars and show off. Yun Jian had presented 3 limited edition sports cars in this auto show. Which car marketing company in the Z Nation could compare to this kind of capital? Limited edition supercars were hard to come by in the entire world. But Yun Jian had managed to get her hands on 3 of them. When the time came, she would be able to earn tens of millions by selling a luxury car. The money that she, Yun Jian, had spent would be as good as flowing water. Moreover, the effect of her promotion of the company had already caused a huge commotion in the automobile industry of Z country. New crews would probably be the first choice for rich bosses to buy cars in the future. However, the people next to Mayor Gu were paying attention to the sentence. Yun Jian spent more than 14 million yuan to buy this store at the auction. More than 14 million? Heavens! Not to mention the 1998 era. Even in the modern era, this was a huge sum of money that ordinary people might not be able to save in their entire lives. Even Qin Fangfang's husband's family, Sun Baiwen's family, which could be said to be a rich and famous family, only had a few million in assets. What about Yun Jian? Buying a storefront costs more than 10 million. This was the difference. Zhang Xiaofeng and the other 2 were stunned once again. Now Zhang Xiaofeng's blood was boiling. Who would dare to say that his master was poor in the future? He would fight with his life on the line. Mayor Gu, we meet again. Yun Jian squinted and nodded at Mayor Gu. Not bad. This little girl has a bright future ahead of her. Mayor Gu squinted and laughed out loud. He could not help but compliment her. After Yun Jian and Mayor Gu nodded, she turned to look at the pale Zhu Hengxiang and said, "As you said, my mom works in my company. What's wrong with sweeping the floor? She's experiencing life. Unlike some people who look glamorous on the surface, but are as shrewish as a shrew behind her back." Zhu Hengxiang had just mocked Yun Jian for being poor, but learning how to do things from rich people. Now Yun Jian was returning the same words to her. Chapter 263. It was Zhu Hengxiang's first time being reprimanded in public. Zhu Hengxiang was born in a prestigious family with superior conditions since she was young, and her husband was a match for her after she got married. She was a typical upper-class family. Zhu Hengxiang had never been scolded like that in her entire life. However, no matter how dumb she would not go against Yun Jian. Yun Jian was the director of new crews. How would Zhu Hengxiang dare to retort with such a status? Ha! Yun Jian chuckled when she saw that Zhu Hengxiang dared not respond to her anymore. Then, Yun Jian pulled Qin Fangfang, who had yet to react to the situation, and warned Zhu Hengxiang and Sun Baiyan, who stood beside her. If I find out that my aunt is bullied by you guys in the future, don't blame me for not reminding you. Let's see which manufacturer dares to continue working with your family's car dealership in the future. Yun Jian was blatantly threatening them. Without the cooperation of a manufacturer, there was only one outcome for a car dealership: bankruptcy. In spite of it, only she, Yun Jian, was capable of uttering such arrogant words. At the same time, Yun Jian's message was that she had the ability to make an established car dealership go bankrupt. Perhaps, if Yun Jian had said something like that before this, everyone would have treated it as a joke, thinking that she was young and frivolous. Now, however, an underage girl like her could organize such a grand auto show. The crowd thought that she was capable of doing what she said. Zhu Hengxiang paled. She had never thought that she would get herself into such a mess. She also did not expect Qin Fangfang's niece to be so capable, after being looked down upon by her for so many years in poverty. She dared to bid for a storefront for more than 10 million yuan. Zhu Hengxiang knew very well that the Sun family's total assets were only a few million yuan. Compared to Yun Jian, it was nothing. Xiao Jian, alright, that's enough. Qin Fangfang finally snapped back to reality and held Yun Jian, who stood up for her. After all, this was her mother-in-law. Even if her mother-in-law and sister-in-law were not on good terms, they still had to live together. Yun Jian stopped talking after hearing Qin Fangfang's words. Of course, she knew when to stop. She had already warned Zhu Hengxiang and Sun Baiyan. Unless they were idiots, they would not dare to do anything else. Yun Jian also knew that if she continued to speak, it would make things difficult for Qin Fangfang. Thus, they stopped talking about this topic. For the sake of Qin Fangfang, and the fact that Zhu Hengxiang and Sun Baiyan didn't dare to speak since just now, Yun Jian didn't really drive them out. However, no one paid any attention to them. At this time, Yun Jian was already chatting happily with Mayor Gu, while Zhang Xiaofeng and the other two followed beside her. Yun Jian led Mayor Gu to the 3 limited edition sports cars and introduced them to Mayor Gu one by one. This is a Pagani Zonda. It's a tricolor sports car from Italy, and there's only one in the world. It uses special LED lights on the front and back of the car. It's styled like an airplane's headlights. Yun Jian's fluent explanation stood out. Other than Mayor Gu, everyone who was standing in front of the sports cars to watch was captivated. If Yun Jian was the director of New Cruise, she would know the introduction of these limited edition sports cars despite her young age. Moreover, her explanation was extremely smooth. It was as if she knew these limited edition sports cars very well. Chapter 264. The auto show went on smoothly. After sending Qin Fangfang and her family off, the show came to a close. See you next time, girl, Mayor Gu said to Yun Jian when he left with Su Zetian. As he said that, Mayor Gu gestured to Yun Jian. Also, our government will support any promotional projects New Cruise has in the future. You can come to me if you run into any trouble. With Mayor Gu's assurance, Yun Jian smiled gratefully. Although she did not need help, it was good to have Mayor Gu's goodwill. After sending off everyone who came to watch the auto show, there were only the staff clearing the venue. Zhang Xiaofeng, Zhang Jifan, and Zhang Jifan left. Looking at Zhang Xiaofeng, Zhang Jifan, and Zhang Jifan, who were holding back their questions, Yun Jian smiled and told them, "If you're willing, you can work for Jifan in the future." Yun Jian was planning to let Zhang Xiaofeng, Zhang Jifan, and Zhang Jifan join her new cruise. Zhang Xiaofeng, Zhang Jifan, and Zhang Jifan came from rich families. They had lived a life of having everything taken care of, and had never worked independently. Did Yun Jian mean that she wanted them to join New Cruise? This was no doubt a chance to break away from family and express themselves. "We're willing, of course we're willing," all 3 of them shouted in unison. Yun Jian pressed her lips into a smile. After the auto show, all sorts of sports cars, regular sedans and affordable sedans that New Cruise promoted went on the market. To everyone's surprise, New Cruise had sold 368 cars in less than 3 days of official car sales. This meant that they sold over 100 sedans on average in these few days. There were many expensive sports cars among them. Selling one of them would earn them millions of yuan. Of course, Longmen City's big bosses were not the only buyers. Some business tycoons who came because of their fame were there as well. New Cruise rose rapidly, earning a net profit of 30 million yuan in the month. The astounding sales made it the top car company in the country, let alone Longmen City's car marketing company. The company's reputation soared and swept the country. As the director of New Cruise, Yun Jian was sitting in the classroom, her fair and slender fingers twirling a black pen leisurely as she worked on a blank test paper on her desk. Yun Jian was in the first semester of her 3rd year in junior high school. She would face the first major exam of her life in half a semester, the senior high school entrance exams. Therefore, the school's teachers had increased their students' learning tasks, such as endless test papers every day. Yun Jian, while it was still alright, Zhang and Chen Sini, their heads were dizzy from the test paper. This weekend, Yun Jian was invited by Chu Ning and the others to celebrate the successful completion of their mission. Moreover, Gu Junjian had already applied for a reward for them from their superiors. Other than some monetary rewards, The 7 of them were directly promoted to official members of the Special Forces. It was no doubt a joyous event for Chu Ning and the rest. After some discussion, they decided to go on a trip this weekend to relax and change their moods. On Saturday morning, Yun Jian carried her school bag stuffed with a dozen hard-boiled eggs that Qin Yiru had prepared for her, and went to meet up with Chu Ning and the rest. "Hey Yun Jianer, we're here." Chu Ning was the first to see Yun Jian and greeted her. Yun Jian went over. The group then boarded the train to a famous mountain. Chapter 265. The train arrived at a place called Jinglian Town. The famous mountain was called Weiwu Mountain. The mountain was very high above sea level, and the mountain path was rugged and steep. Jinglian Town was an ancient town attached to the foot of Weiwu Mountain. It was not without reason that this place was chosen as a place to travel. It was because Weiwu Mountain was high above sea level, steep and winding. It was very suitable for adventurous and exciting activities. There was a well-known fact about Weiwu Mountain. Throughout the year, there were many tourists who wanted to climb this mountain, but only 1 in 10 had the ability to reach the top. This rumor attracted a large number of mountain climbing enthusiasts, especially when everyone wanted to be the only 1 out of 10 who could climb to the top of the mountain. However, many people returned without success. In fact, there was no one at the top, but according to those who had reached the top, tents could be set up on the mountain, as long as they brought their own tents. Chu Ning and the rest alighted from the train. When they arrived at Jinglian Town, they were stunned by the towering Weiwu Mountain in front of them. Yun Jian merely squinted her eyes, but she raised a brow subtly when she saw Weiwu Mountain, that was so tall that she could not even see its peak. "Wow, this is Weiwu Mountain. To be honest, I've wanted to climb this mountain for a long time. I heard that only 1 in 10 can climb to the top from the bottom of this mountain. Haha." Chu Xiangnan looked around the bottom of the mountain, his face agitated. "Then let's go. Let's see who can run faster." Chu Ning rubbed her hands excitedly and was about to run ahead. "Everyone, wait." The early morning sun shone on Yun Jian. It was very dazzling. Just as Yun Jian and the rest were about to go up the mountain, a voice came from behind them. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes and turned sideways. She saw a few young men and women in their 20s standing behind them. This group of people was also carrying a travel bag. It seemed that they were also here to climb Weiwu Mountain. The person who just spoke was the sunny man standing at the front with a smile on his face. "Hello, I'm Qin Yan. These are my classmates. May I ask if you are planning to go up the mountain too?" The man with a bright smile introduced in a friendly manner and asked. "Yes." Yun Jian stood at the back of the group, but also at the front of Chun Yan. She nodded and said, "Ah, that's great. Can we go up the mountain together? It's like this, we are university students. This time, we are a group to go up the Weiwu Mountain. However, we are unfamiliar with the place, so we want to find someone to go up the mountain together," Chun Yan said. The sunlight bathed Chun Yan's face. This Chun Yan was still a very eye-catching handsome guy. "Sure." Chu Ning, who was walking at the front, saw Chun Yan's handsome face. She ran back as if she was mesmerized. She looked at Chun Yan with a smile and extended her hand to introduce herself. "I'm Chu Ning. Let's go together." That's great." Chun Yan breathed in relief, but his gaze was on Yun Jian, who had her hands in her pockets. One had to admit that Yun Jian was very eye-catching. "Brother Yan, why are we looking for them? If I don't agree." At this moment, a pretty girl with 2 ponytails standing behind Chun Yan spoke up. The girl was about 19 or 20 years old. She seemed to have noticed Chun Yan's gaze on Yun Jian. Her angry face wrinkled even more. Chapter 266. "Yeah, Chun Yan, I think little sister Xiaofeng is right. Why should we form a group? It's better for us to go our own ways. Look at them. They're as thin as a piece of paper. They probably won't even make it halfway up the mountain. We can't let unimportant people drag down our own progress." Standing next to the girl called little sister Xiaofeng, a man with a large build and weighing 150 pounds spoke to Chun Yan. There was no trace of politeness in his tone. The aggressive girl just now was called Wang Fengfeng. She was the prettiest girl in their university's finance and accounting department. The large man who spoke up for her was her suitor Wu Hang. Wang Fengfeng, and Wu Hang's tone was full of confidence. In fact, the group of university students led by Chen Yan to climb Weiwu Mountain had all learned martial arts. At the same time, they were also members of the university's Taekwondo club. They had also participated in Taekwondo, Wushu, and wrestling competitions many times. They had defeated many of their peers and won many championship titles. Therefore, the tone of his voice was full of arrogance, and there was a hint of pride in it. Wang Fengfeng, on the other hand, favored Xin Yan. She was infuriated when she saw him staring at Yun Jian like that. In addition, Yun Jian's group of 7 did indeed look thin and weak. Because of the intensive training in the military training camp, even Chu Ning, who originally had a little baby fat and a small belly, had lost a lot of weight. The current appearance of the 7 of them was symmetrical, thin and weak. Therefore, Wang Fengfeng and Wu Hang seized the opportunity to say that they were weak. "Do you think we want to go with you?" We'll go our own way." Who would feel good after hearing that? Chu Xiangnan was the first to shout back. Then he turned around and left. Chu Ning heard Chen Yan's classmates, Wang Fengfeng and Wu Hang, and suddenly felt a little awkward. "It seems like your classmates don't welcome us. Then let's part ways here." Compared to the emotional ups and downs of the few people, Yun Jian was extremely calm. She said to Chen Yan indifferently, then turned around and walked to the bottom of Weiwu Mountain. She had never been a person who looked for trouble. Seeing that Yun Jian had made her stand, the others followed suit. Chu Ning, who was standing beside Chen Yan, couldn't help but take a few more glances at him. In the end, she had no choice but to say goodbye and chase after Yun Jian and the others. The morning light shone on the girl, who was walking towards the top of the mountain step by step, covering Yun Jian with a thin layer of light. Chen Yan was stunned the moment he saw this naturally noble and inviolable figure. At this time, he stared at Yun Jian for a long time, unable to move his eyes away. "Brother Yan? Brother Yan? Brother Yan?" Wang Fengfeng waved her hand in front of Chen Yan's face several times before he retracted his gaze. Wang Fengfeng was even more annoyed. Why was that girl so annoying? Yun Jian and the others had already climbed up the mountain along the cement path. They could also feel that the mountain road was getting steeper and steeper, and their strides were getting more and more strenuous. Along the way, Yun Jian and the rest stopped for quite some time. They had a lot of snacks in their bags, so they stopped every now and then or drank a few sips of water. "Save! Save me! Save my son, save him!" At this time, a woman's scream came from the mountainside where Yun Jian and the others were. Yun Jian and the others looked at each other, packed up their bags and walked back. After going down a few steep slopes, they saw a woman standing at the edge of the cliff and looking down. The woman's face was pale with fright, and she was so scared that her voice was almost muffled. Yun Jian walked over to take a look, and saw that at the bottom of the steep cliff, a 7 or 8-year-old boy was hanging from a tree that grew on the edge of the cliff. The boy was hanging in the air, and his shirt was dangling from the tree, swaying back and forth. If the boy's shirt were to let go of the tree branch, what would face him would be a bottomless abyss, a cliff that couldn't be seen at all. There's a child hanging from a tree. Below is a cliff. Yun Jian and the others had just walked to the edge of the cliff when they saw a group of people coming down the slope. Wang Fengfeng, who was walking in front, pointed at the bottom of the cliff and screamed in fear. Chapter 267. Chen Yan caught a glimpse of Yun Jian, who was coming back. Without any makeup, Yun Jian's jade-like skin was glossy and delicate. She had a natural beauty. She pursed her lips into a slight smile. Her upturned lips carried a kind of suffocating and mesmerizing charm that was eye-catching. Chen Yan thought, this is love at first sight. Chen Yan wanted to go with Yun Jian at first, so he didn't ask the other members of his group. He just wanted to get to know Yun Jian. And now, perhaps he wanted to play the hero in front of Yun Jian. Chen Yan took off his black coat and handed it to Wang Fengfeng. "Take it." Then Chen Yan walked towards the little boy, who was hanging on the branch of the cliff. The little boy's mother was crying and shouting for help. It wasn't hard to see that the little boy accidentally stepped on the flat ground just now, because she wasn't paying attention. The little boy's small and thin body directly slipped over the iron fence. If it weren't for the rows of branches growing on the edge of the cliff, which the locals cultivated to prevent people from falling off the cliff, the little boy would probably have fallen off the cliff and been smashed to pieces. Brother Yan, don't. Chen Yan wanted to save the little boy, but Wang Fengfeng pulled his sleeve. This cliff is so high, and it's so steep. What if something happens to you? Wang Fengfeng's worried eyes looked at Chen Yan, her eyes filled with fear. Then Wang Fengfeng looked at the little boy's mother, who was standing on the edge of the cliff and desperately begging for help, with disgust, and added, "She didn't take care of her child. Why should she beg others to save her child? I think this woman deserves it." Chen Yan was stopped by Wang Fengfeng for a moment, and he hesitated. Indeed, he just wanted to show off in front of Yun Jian, but the little boy was hanging on the branch of the cliff. There were no tools to save him here. If he went to save him, what if he fell down instead? Thinking of this, Chen Yan's handsome face showed an inexplicable look of fear. Yun Jian saw all these expressions. She just smiled contemptuously. Then, she took off her backpack and slid it to the ground. Her fair and slender fingers pulled the zipper of the backpack, and she quickly took something out of it. Flying claw. Yun Jianer, you actually remembered to bring this? Chu Ning was still worried about the little boy who was dangling from the cliff and was about to fall when she saw Yun Jian take out a flying claw. She cried out in surprise. Military flying claw. With this thing, as long as it was fixed properly, and he grabbed the rope, he could hang down to save the little boy. Yes. Yun Jian nodded. She swung her flying claw, and it caught a firm spot on the edge of the cliff. Then she jumped off the cliff. When Chen Yan and the others saw this scene, their eyelids twitched tightly. When they came back to their senses, they were all shocked, especially when they saw Yun Jian take out the flying claws. Who were they? Why would they bring a flying claw, a weapon that belonged to the special forces, when they were traveling? Just as they thought of this, Chen Yan and the others were stunned. They saw Yun Jian move in a perfect arc. She used the flying claw and leaned towards the little boy. Then she reached out and picked up the little boy. At the moment when everyone's heart skipped a beat, she retracted the flying claw in her hand and stomped on a protruding cliff point. Then she jumped up nimbly. When they looked again, Yun Jian had already rescued the little boy. Meanwhile, Chen Yan and the others were dumbfounded. How was it that Yun Jian, who looked so thin and frail, was so agile and swift? This didn't make sense. Especially Wang Fengfeng and Wu Hang, who had said bad things about Yun Jian and the others. At this moment, there was no trace of redness on their faces. When Yun Jian rescued the little boy and placed him on the ground, she saw the little boy's face clearly. The little boy was very delicate and pretty. His skin was smooth and lustrous, and his cheeks were rosy. It was as if he didn't realize that he had just experienced a life-and-death situation. Yun Jian was dumbfounded. Under everyone's gaze, her beautiful pupils contracted. She stared at the little boy for a moment, her emotions changing rapidly. Chapter 268. Yun Jian sized up the little boy. Looking at the little boy's face that was identical to her little brother's, she couldn't help but think of her little brother's lively smile when she first saw him in her previous life. She also remembered the dried tear stains at the corner of her little brother's eyes when he died tragically. Little Zhu? Yun Jian reached out her hand. Although she had always been strong, her voice was trembling when she spoke. Her little brother's name was Yun Zhu. She still remembered the first time her little brother had seen her in her previous life. He had used his big black eyes to stare at her. His face was rosy, his lips were white, and his words were clear. He had blinked at her and said, "Are you my big sister?" Then, he happily grabbed her big hand with his short and cold little fingers. He was overjoyed. That's great. Little Zhu has a big sister too. Little Zhu has a family too. Yun Jian and Yun Zhu's biological parents died in a car accident when Yun Zhu was 4 years old. The reason was that Yun Jian was kidnapped by the organization when she was very young. Her biological parents searched for her for more than 10 years. In the end, both of them died in a car accident during the search. Yun Zhu grew up in an orphanage. All these years, Yun Jian was trained as an agent in the Enhun organization. When Yun Jian had the ability to find her family before she was kidnapped, she only had her little brother left. Later, her little brother was used to threaten her and died tragically. Yun Jian's heart was not made of steel. She could be angry and hate this kind of world. The little boy in front of her was frightened by Yun Jian's sudden outstretched hand. He shrank back. Jur. At this time, the little boy's mother rushed over with tears in her eyes. She hugged the little boy tightly. The fear in her heart could not be described by the word fear. Mom, this big sister seems to know my name. The little boy pointed at Yun Jian and said innocently to the woman. However, his eyes were dull. Yes, Yun Jianer, what's wrong with you? Everyone was surprised by Yun Jian's actions. Chu Ning could not help but be the first to ask. So this little boy was also called Yun Ju. He was the same as her little brother. I'm fine. Yun Jian closed her eyes and wore a half-pressed smile. Regardless of whether this little boy was her younger brother or not, since he had the same face as her younger brother, and even had the same name as her younger brother, this gave her some hope. Perhaps her younger brother was still alive, in another way. Little girl, thank you. Thank you for saving my son. Thank you. After Yunju's mother settled her child down, she walked over to Yun Jian to thank her. She was so sincere that she almost knelt down to thank Yun Jian. In the end, she was stopped by Yun Jian. At this moment, Chun Yen and the others who were standing at the side were very embarrassed. In the beginning, this group of people all thought that Yun Jian and the others were cowards, so they were very straightforward with their words. But what was the result? A 15 or 16-year-old girl had single-handedly rescued a little boy who was hanging on the edge of a cliff. By this time, Yun Jian had already met Yunju's mother. Yunju's mother was called Yin Hailan. She was a single mother, and Yunju took her surname. This time she came to Weiwu Mountain for her child Duan Lian. According to Yin Hailan's mother, Yunju had changed completely after he fell seriously ill a few months ago. His eyes became dull, and he did not like to talk. Sometimes he would even scream in his nightmares. No, don't kill me. Sob, 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 please don't kill me. Usually he became very timid. At the age of 8, he did not even dare to go to the toilet alone in the middle of the night. Yun Hailan came to Weiwu Mountain because of Duan Lian and Yunju's courage, but she did not expect something like this to happen. She did not expect that Yunju would fall down the cliff just because she was not paying attention. When Yun Jian heard Yun Hailan's words, she froze on the spot. A few months ago, wasn't that when she was reborn? Chapter 269. Could it be that her brother was reborn? Yun Jian suppressed the excitement in her heart. However, she knew one thing. Even if the little boy in front of her was her brother, he did not remember her. However, Yun Jian knew that her brother had been traumatized in his previous life. He was only 7 or 8 years old, but his head had been cut off. When he died, there were still traces of tears on his tender cheeks. Mom, let's go home. At this moment, Yunju stretched out his hands to Yun Hailan. His face was still expressionless as he said those words in a daze. Okay. Let's go home. Yun Hailan reached out and carried Yunju. Then she apologized to Yun Jian. Zhu'er wanted to go home, so I brought him home first. I didn't expect something like this to happen today. I won't bring him to such a dangerous place in the future. By the way, my house is nearby. If it's convenient, you can stay at my house for a few nights. This Weiwu Mountain is not easy to climb. Most people will come down not long after going up the mountain. The closer the mountain is to the top, the steeper the slope. Moreover, it could be life-threatening at any time. Therefore, most people would not risk their lives to climb up the mountain. Okay. Yun Jian nodded. Her eyes were fixed on Yunju. Then she made a decision. I'm not going up the mountain. It seems that I'll have to trouble you for a few nights. She had to figure out what happened to her brother. What? Yun Jian, you're not going up the mountain? Chu Xiangnan was completely unaware of the situation. He shouted in surprise. Yes, I'm not going. In fact, whether or not she climbed the mountain did not matter much to Yun Jian. Therefore, she nodded and replied to Chu Xiangnan. You guys go ahead. Yun Jian said to Chu Xiangnan, Chu Ning, and the others. Then she went down the mountain with Yin Hailan. Chun Yin watched Yun Jian go down the mountain. He wanted to say something, But in the end, he went up the mountain with Wang Fengfeng and the others. Meanwhile, Yun Jian followed them to Yun Halan's house alone. Yun Halan's house was very shabby. She was a single mother, but her family was much more shabby than Yun Gang's. The few rooms here were made up of temporary wooden planks, barely enough for people to live in. You live here? Yun Jian frowned slightly. Well, I hope you don't mind. Yun Hailan smiled at Yun Jian, with a hint of apology in her smile. I won't. Yun Jian followed Yun Hailan into the house made of wooden planks. As she walked into the house, she could even feel the cold winter wind passing through the thin wooden planks and blowing at the people in the house. Sorry, my house is a little shabby. You can sit anywhere, Yun Hailan said to Yun Jian. Yun Jian did not stand on ceremony. She sat down directly. While Yun Jian sat down and chatted with Yunju, Yun Hailan took the opportunity to start working. Because Yun Halan's family was poor, she could only rely on handicrafts to make a living. Mom, I'm cold. At this moment Yunju, who was wearing thin clothes, curled up and shouted. Yun Hailan gritted her teeth and said to Yunju, Be good, Juer. I'll buy you a cotton-padded coat when I get my salary in a few days. Yun Halan's family was so poor that they could barely afford food and clothing. The residents of Jinglian town generally lived in poor conditions. Yun Hailan had no work experience, and now she had to raise her child, so she was even more destitute. She did not even have the money to go to the hospital when Yunju's behavior became strange in recent months. When Yun Jian heard this, she took off her thick down jacket and put it on Yunju. This is not right. Yun Hailan saw this and reached out to refuse. The child is still growing. He needs warmth, Yun Jian explained. Yun Hailan was silent for a few seconds. She looked at Yun Jian gratefully and said with tears in her eyes, Thank you. Chapter 270. When Yun Hailan heard the banging outside the door, she pricked her fingertip with the needle she was holding in her panic. She did not care about the blood that was slowly flowing out of her fingertip as she hurried over to push Yun Jian away. Young lady, go hide in the house first. Go now. Yun Hailan pushed Yun Jian into the house. Yun Jian frowned and shook her head. The group of people outside obviously came with ill intentions. How could she leave Yun Hailan to hide? Zhu, bring your sister inside to play, Yun Hailan said to Yunju, who was sitting on a stool when she could not persuade Yun Jian. Yunju was not a talkative person, but he was still very obedient to his mother. Yunju went over to hold Yun Jian's hand and led her into the house. Yun Jian followed Yunju into the house because she saw Yun Hailan telling her softly, I'm fine. Young lady, look after Zhu for me. After Yun Jian and Yunju hid in the house, Yun Hailan turned to open the door. Creak. The thin door panel was opened. Yun Jian could still see the scene through the crack of the door from the other room. Standing outside the door was a tall and burly man with thick arms and a bulging beer belly. Jinglian town was not a peaceful town because the residents here were different from Longmen City. The living environment here was a few levels worse than Longmen City, so there was more social unrest here. The residents here would be forcefully collected protection fees. It was not unusual to see such incidents. Even the police could not do anything about these people who collected protection fees. Because these people were all gangsters, all of them wielded knives and guns. Most importantly, these people had someone backing them up, so even the police could not do anything about them. There was a group of people standing behind the man, each of them holding something like metal rods in their hands. It was obvious that they were not good people. At this time, the tall man in the lead shook his fat body and stretched out a fat hand. He was holding a blade of grass in his mouth. He looked at Yun Hailan arrogantly. Where's the money? Yun Hailan looked a little scared, but she forced herself to look at them normally. Brother Nio, our family is tight on money recently. Can you give me a few more days? After I finish this batch of work, I'll give you the money as soon as I get paid. What do you think? Yun Hailan pleaded. She really had no money. If she had some extra money on hand, she wouldn't have refused to take her child to the hospital when he was so emotionally unstable. Motherf asterisk Ker. Who the F asterisk CK are you trying to fool? The other families have already paid the protection fees. And you're the only one who's still dawdling. Brothers, let's go. Don't talk nonsense with this woman. Let's smash her house and see if she can pay for it. The man called Brother Neo waved an iron rod and was about to hit Yun Hailan's thin body. Yun Hailan was already prepared to take a beating. Brother Neo's group was unreasonable. Because they were gangsters, they usually stirred up trouble and had a powerful background. Even the police couldn't do anything to them. It was common for Yun Hailan to be beaten. Of course, before she was beaten, she would lock Yun Zhu in the room so that the child wouldn't see it. She asked Yun Jian to hide as well because Yun Jian was pretty. Brother Neo's group was not only greedy, but they would also forcefully occupy beautiful women when they saw them. Many innocent girls in town had been defiled by this group of people. She was indebted to Yun Jian. Of course, she couldn't watch Yun Jian be bullied, so she asked them to hide and keep quiet. Just as the iron rod was about to hit Yun Hailan, a pair of fair and clean hands suddenly grabbed the iron rod. In the blink of an eye, Yun Jian had already dashed out of the house next door. When Brother Neo and his group saw Yun Jian, their eyes lit up. What a beautiful woman! Chapter 271. Yun Jian's appearance stunned Brother Neo and the others, but at the same time, they also looked at her with lustful eyes. Yo, Yun Hailan, when did you hide such a beautiful girl in your house? Brother Neo's tone immediately softened, and his tone was not as tough as before. Why did you come out? Go quickly, this has nothing to do with you. Yun Hailan was shocked to see Yun Jian come out, and she quickly pushed Yun Jian out of the house. Yun Hailan actually just wanted to protect Yun Jian. You're here and you want to leave? Haha. Brother Neo and the others blocked the door and stared at Yun Jian with evil eyes. Yun Hailan, how about this? Let this little girl accompany us and we'll waive this month's protection fee. What do you think? Brother Neo rubbed his chin and looked at Yun Jian and said to her with an evil smile, as if Yun Hailan had gotten a great bargain. Dream on. Yun Hailan gritted her teeth, and she suddenly summoned her courage to shout at Brother Neo and the others. Yun Jian was her benefactor, and Yun Hailan did not expect that Brother Neo and the others would come to collect protection fee at this time. And she also did not expect that Yun Jian would not listen to her and come out to stand up for her. Naturally, she would not let Yun Jian fall into the hands of evil people. Motherf *Ker, when did you get so bold? Huh. I'm giving you a chance today because of you. I won't collect this month's protection fee from your family. And your *King refusing a toast only to drink a forfeit? Brother Neo said. And then he angrily smashed the iron rod on the door. Hearing Brother Neo's words, Yun Jian laughed. Do you know the consequences of messing with the lion's head? Yun Jian raised her eyebrows. She suddenly curled her lips and looked at Brother Neo and the others with disdain. Yo, little beauty. I can't guess such a deep mystery, but I know you're going to be mine soon. Brother Neo narrowed his eyes and stared at Yun Jian. As he spoke, he even reached out his hand and wanted to pounce on Yun Jian. Brother Neo immediately rushed towards Yun Jian, but before he could reach her, he was stopped by Yun Hailan. Yun Hailan's frail body blocked Brother Neo and the others. She shouted desperately at Yun Jian. Take Shu'er and run. Jump out of the back window. Don't look back. Go. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes. Run. This word had never appeared in Yun Jian's dictionary. Just as Yun Jian was about to kick Brother Neo and his men away, Yun Zhu's voice was heard in the house. Mom! Yun Zhu had stood outside the house unknowingly. He saw the scene in front of him and cried out involuntarily, especially when he saw his mother desperately blocking Brother Neo and his men with her body, not allowing them to come over. Brother Neo and his men were even holding various weapons such as knives and iron rods. A horrifying image suddenly appeared in Yun Zhu's mind. Knives killing people. No, don't kill me. Yun Zhu suddenly hugged his head as if he had recalled something. He squatted down in pain. Xiaozhu. Yun Jian's attention was attracted by Yun Zhu's actions. She stopped kicking Brother Neo and his men and walked anxiously towards Yun Zhu. Xiaozhu, what's wrong? Yun Jian would only lose control when her brother was in danger. Yun Jian squatted down to check on Yun Zhu's condition. On the other side, Brother Neo, who was blocked by Yun Hailan at the door, suddenly rolled his eyes. He pulled out a dagger in disgust and stabbed Yin Hailan's abdomen. Ah! It was not until Yin Hailan screamed in pain that Yin Jian came back to her senses. Brother Niu twisted the knife in Yin Hailan's abdomen a few times, and then pushed Yin Hailan to the ground. Damn it! Yin Jian's eyes turned fierce, and her pupils suddenly changed color. She was so worried about Yin Zhu that she forgot about Yin Hailan. She did not expect Brother Niu to really stab Yin Hailan. When Yin Zhu saw this scene, and recalled the past in his mind, he was in great pain. Yin Jian stood up from Yin Zhu's side. Her cruel eyes were filled with burning anger. She was really angry. Chapter 272. At first, Brother Niu and the others didn't see Yin Jian as a threat at all. After all, in their eyes, how old was Yin Jian? No matter how powerful she was just a little girl. Where could she go? But the moment Yin Jian took out the butterfly knife, Brother Niu and the others' eyelids twitched. F***ck, are you for real? The little beauty is hiding a weapon on her? Brother Niu screamed. But even if you have a weapon on you, do you think you can beat us? Puffed. Brother Niu looked at Yin Jian with contempt as she walked towards them with the butterfly knife. Just as he sneered, Yin Jian had already made her move. The butterfly knife in her hand moved nimbly between her fingers, and then stabbed into Brother Niu's abdomen at a strange angle. Brother Niu's eyes widened. He didn't even have the chance to react before he was stabbed in the abdomen by this seemingly harmless girl in front of him. You! Brother Niu shouted desperately. You're not human. You're not human. How is it possible for a little girl to be able to display such quick skills? But Brother Niu couldn't finish his words. The moment Yin Jian withdrew the knife, Brother Niu fainted completely. With a bang, he fell to the ground and stopped breathing in the next second. Dead! Dead! Brother Niu is dead. Seeing that Brother Niu was killed by Yin Jian with such terrifying skills, Brother Niu's group of brothers became restless. Then they all ran away faster than anyone else. No one cared about Brother Niu's life or death. This little girl could kill. She could kill. Seeing this group of people run away, Yin Jian didn't chase after them. After all, the person who stabbed Yin Hailan was Brother Niu. And now Brother Niu was dead. Yin Jian walked over to check on Yin Hailan, who was stabbed on the ground by Brother Niu. She touched Yin Hailan's nose with her finger and calmed down. Fortunately, Yin Hailan wasn't dead. Then Yin Jian pressed around Yin Hailan's wound, and found that the wound wasn't deep. But if it dragged on for a long time, even if the wound wasn't deep, the person would bleed to death. The equipment here was incomplete. She could help Yin Hailan remove the knife, but without the proper equipment, the wound could easily get infected. Therefore, Yin Jian took out the hemostatic medicine that she had bought after her rebirth, and used it to stop Yin Hailan's bleeding. Then, Yin Jian ran out to stop a car. She was unfamiliar with this place, and didn't even know where the nearest hospital was. Furthermore, Yin Hailan's wound wasn't suitable for her to carry her to the hospital. Fortunately, Yin Jian quickly stopped a kind-hearted Audi sports car at the entrance. The driver was a middle-aged man. When he heard that someone was injured, he hurriedly helped Yin Jian carry Yin Hailan into the car and send her to the hospital. Yin Jian held Yunju's hand and went to the nearest town hospital together. Yunju did not say a word along the way, but his dull eyes had become much clearer. Yin Jian didn't stop until Yin Hailan was sent to the hospital's operating room. She knew that with Yin Hailan's current injury, the hospital's medical skills could save her. It was the first time that the middle-aged man had seen a girl like Yin Jian, who could remain calm in such a terrible situation. So he stayed with her until Yin Hailan's life was no longer in danger. Yin Jian thanked him and personally saw him off. Yin Hailan hadn't woken up after the operation, but she had been moved to the ward. After finishing the formalities, Yin Jian took Yunju's little hand and walked to the ward. Sister. Yunju, who had been silent all this time, suddenly called out. At this moment, walking in the deserted corridor of the hospital, Yin Jian's hand holding Yunju's hand suddenly paused. Yunju's next words almost made her, who had always been stubborn, cry. You're my sister, right? I know you're my sister. Chapter 273. Yunju's rosy cheeks were adorable. There was a hint of maturity in his tender face. He looked very much like Qin Ji, but it was not difficult to tell that he was a young boy with regular features. When he grew up, he would definitely be a charming man. They were blood relatives in their previous lives. Even though Yin Jian and Yunju had changed their bodies, they could still feel each other's feelings. Yin Jian smiled. A teardrop formed in her eyes. It swirled, but it did not fall in the end. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. She just squatted down and hugged Yunju. She pressed her chin against Yunju's shoulder and nodded gently. Yunju raised his head. He reached out his little hand to grab the corner of Yin Jian's clothes. There was a faint smile on his little face. Sister, yes. Yin Jian stroked Yunju's hair. All the regret and pain seemed to disappear at this moment. At this moment, the feeling of regaining what she had lost was indescribable by Yun Jian. Her younger brother's death had always been a knot in her heart. Now that her younger brother had been reborn like her shackled heart was also freed. However, she still wanted to take revenge for what happened in her previous life. Her younger brother did not die. This was a favor from God. However, the pain that her younger brother had suffered was real. Yun Jian swore that if she had the chance in the future, she would let the Inferno Ring suffer the consequences of angering her. Yun Halan's injury was not serious in Yun Jian's mind. Perhaps because of her experience in her previous life, Yun Jian thought that as long as it was not fatal, it was not a serious injury. However, in the eyes of ordinary people, Yun Hailan had already been seriously injured. Yun Hailan had been stabbed in the abdomen. The wound was blurry. She had to lie in bed for half a year to recover slowly. In short, she had to recuperate slowly to recover to her previous state. Yun Jian sent Yun Hailan abroad to recuperate. She also told Yun Hailan that she would take good care of Yunju. At first, Yun Hailan was too embarrassed to agree. After all, Yun Jian had paid for her treatment after the accident. She didn't have the face to ask Yun Jian to help her take care of the child. However, after Yunju expressed her willingness to follow Yun Jian, Yun Hailan relented. Before Yun Hailan was sent abroad to recuperate, she thanked Yun Jian with tears in her eyes, and told Yunju to listen to Yun Jian. Yun Jian contacted the best hospital overseas. By the time she sent Yun Hailan over, it was already the afternoon of the next day. The next day, Yun Jian held Yunju's hand and showed her most beautiful smile. They stood under the sun and waited for Chu Ning and the others who had just come down from Weiwu Mountain. Chu Ning and the others arrived at the top of the mountain and stayed there for a night before coming down. They had talked about all this in their phone calls. In the end, Yin Jian did not see Chen Yan and the rest of them again. When Chu Ning and the others boarded the train back to Longmen City with Yun Jian, Chu Xiangnan even teased Yun Jian with a chuckle. "Oh, I didn't know that you Yun Jian have the ability to kidnap someone's little brother. So, you're planning to do this by not going up the mountain with us." As he spoke, Chu Xiangnan glanced at Yunju. Yunju shrunk toward Yun Jian shyly. "No one will think you're a mute if you don't speak." Chu Ning added to Chu Xiangnan with a grin. "Or maybe you want me to turn you into a mute." Yun Jian swung the butterfly knife in her hand with a grin. Her smile was beautiful and innocent. No. Forget it." Chu Xiangnan waved his hand immediately. The group was overjoyed. Even Jiang Weiwei, who had always disliked interacting with others, was slowly becoming a part of the group. Jiang Weiwei's change had only begun recently. The train returned to Longmen City at night. After Yun Jian parted with the group, she held Xiao Yunju's hand all the way home. Holding Xiao Yunju's hand, Yun Jian had just stepped into the villa when she saw the tall figure sitting on the sofa. It was Ci. She was stunned, but still held Xiao Yunju's hand as they entered the house. "Jejia, are we staying here from now on?" Xiao Yunju turned to ask Yun Jian when Ci looked over. "Yeah, Jejia will introduce Jejia's family to you." Yun Jian could not help caressing her younger brother's head with a wide smile. Ci was already striding over with her long legs. He frowned slightly. Since Yun Jian came in with the little guy, she had not spared a glance at her. "Oh." Xiao Yunju pressed his lips together, his head bobbing up and down. He then looked around and asked Yun Jian, "Jejia, can I sleep with you tonight?" "Of course." "No." After Xiao Yunju asked, two voices sounded at the same time. Chapter 274. Yunjian and Yunju were both stunned by Siyi's words. Yunjian in particular did not understand the meaning behind Siyi's words. Yunju, on the other hand, shook his adorable little head from side to side. An 8-year-old child naturally did not understand that he had asked his older sister a question. Why was his older brother, who was so handsome, not allowing him to sleep with his older sister when his older sister had already agreed to it? Before either of them realized what was going on, Siyi's tall and broad figure appeared in front of Yunjian. He raised his good-looking eyebrows slightly and turned to look at Xiao Yunju. His short hair tilted to the side as he repeated his words in a mellow and pleasant voice. "You're not allowed to sleep with her." Yunju's arrival had been unexpected. Moreover, he had not helped Yunju clean up a clean room. However, Yunju wanted to sleep in the same room as Yunjian. Even though Yunju was just a little kid, he would not allow it. Xiao Yunju frowned when he heard Siyi's words. He looked at Siyi in confusion and asked, "Big brother, why can't I sleep with my older sister?" The corners of Siyi's lips quirked up, his handsome lips exuding a certain charm. He paused for a moment before he came up with a random excuse. "Because you're a boy." After that he added, "You'll sleep in my room tonight." With that, Siyi turned and went upstairs. No matter how much he explained, he didn't. "Ridiculous," Yunjian said softly as she watched Siyi go upstairs. She then reached out to rub her younger brother's head. "Little Zhu, you can sleep with big brother tonight." Yunjian looked at her younger brother with a bright smile. Okay. Yunju was a very obedient child. He quickly realized that he could not sleep in the same room as his older sister. However, big brother seemed very fierce just now. Forget it, he should listen to his sister. In the evening, when Qin Yiru and others went home, Yunjian introduced Yunju's background to Qin Yiru. Of course, she would not tell Qin Yiru that Yunju was her younger brother in her previous life. She just made up a story, but it was close to the reality. She said that Yunju's mother was seriously injured and hospitalized. She felt sorry for Yunju, so she brought her home to raise her. Qin Yiru was kind-hearted, and since she started working at New Cruise, she had been saving more and more money. He could afford to raise another child. Moreover, Yunju was very likable. Qin Yiru soon fell in love with Xiao Yunju. He even kept calling her Xiaozhu Xiaozhu. Yunjian handled the school transfer procedures for Yunju. The 8-year-old Yunju was already in primary 1. Now that he came back to Longmen City with her, Yunjian quickly got someone to handle the school transfer procedures and enrolled him in school as usual. At the same time, Yunjian went back to her normal school life. Since Zhang Xiaofeng and the others knew that Yunjian was the director of New Cruise, they had been coming to her every day. Of course, Yunjian did not forget to get Zhang Xiaofeng to train his body every day. In the blink of an eye, it had been almost 3 months since her rebirth. This Friday, Yunjian went to Yunyi's school to look for Yunyi after school. She could not find her in the classroom. He went to the music classroom. "It's New Year's Day soon. Your brother participated in a program during the New Year's Day performance this year. He's busy rehearsing in the music classroom now." A boy in the class who could tell that Yunjian was Yunyi's younger sister pointed the way for Yunjian out of kindness. Chapter 275. The DE Senior High School that Yunyi studied in was an elite school, but not everyone could enroll in it. And for such a public school with such a foundation, its education level was also very high. Here, not only could students enjoy the guidance of first-level education teachers, they could even choose their own interests and hobbies. These hobbies included a variety of musical instruments. Every student who studied here could choose a musical instrument they liked to practice. At the same time, there were teachers who specialized in musical instruments who taught the students how to play. Just as Yunjian approached the music classroom, she heard the sounds of various musical instruments being played. The sound of all the instruments mixed together was like a cacophony of noise, extremely unpleasant to the ears. Now that she was closer, she could even see the young man standing in front of the classroom with his slender fingers strumming the guitar. He was as quiet and gentle as a clear spring. Her brother Yun-yi was a guitar student. He was very good at it. Yun-yi had come into contact with the guitar before he studied in this school. Yun-yi came into contact with the guitar because of his junior high school teacher. Yun-yi's junior high school teacher was a beautiful woman who loved to play the guitar. When Yun-yi became obsessed with the guitar, his junior high school teacher knew that Yun-yi liked it, but could not afford a guitar to practice due to her family's financial situation. So she gave her guitar to Yun-yi. Yun-yi had been teaching himself to play the guitar and had not stopped since. Xiao Jian. Yun-yi noticed Yin Jian quickly. He kept his guitar and placed it aside before going to Yin Jian. Guh. Yin Jian called out with squinted eyes and commented to Yun-yi. You played well. It was indeed well done. Yun-yi chuckled in embarrassment and led Yin Jian into the music classroom. The music classroom was currently filled with the sound of various musical instruments being practiced diligently. It was very noisy. Yun-yi, who's this cute little girl? Just as Yin Jian was looking around, an unfriendly voice rang out. A pretty girl in a pretty pink dress with regular features stood in front of Yin Jian, looking at her maliciously with a hint of threat in her tone. At first glance, Yin Jian did not feel anything special about the girl. She's my younger sister Yin Jian. Yun-yi answered with a smile and introduced the girl to Yin Jian. She's Chen Yubing, the main pianist for our New Year's Day performance. Yun-yi gave a simple introduction. Yin Jian on the other hand noticed it. The girl named Chen Yubing kept glancing at Yun-yi. The adoration in her eyes was clearly visible. Yin Jian also realized that Chen Yubing had a lot of opinions about her at first, but when Yun-yi said that she was his younger sister, Chen Yubing's expression changed again. Wow, you're Yun-yi's younger sister. Chen Yubing shouted and glanced at Yun-yi. Then she walked over and pulled Yin Jian to the only piano in the music classroom, as if she was an old friend. At the same time, Chen Yubing was still mumbling to herself, as if she was afraid that others would not know how good she was. Little girl, is this your first time here? Hee, do you want to learn how to play the piano? Although I'm not very good now. I'm only at the 9th grade of piano, but I can teach you how to play. Chapter 276. Although Yin Jian did not like Chen Yubing, she still followed her. She could feel that her brother only treated Chen Yubing as a classmate, but she could not deny the pride and arrogance in Chen Yubing's tone when she spoke to her. She was trying to curry favor with Yin Jian. The reason was simple. Yin-yi was her brother. Come sit here. Chen Yubing gestured for Yin Jian to sit on the stool in front of the only grand piano in the music room. Chen Yubing then stood aside and pressed a few keys on the piano. She lifted her thumb to press one of the keys and introduced it to Yin Jian. Little girl, this key is due. As she spoke, Chen Yubing pressed a few more buttons and explained them to Yin Jian one by one. Yin Jian acted like she did not understand anything and nodded with a slight smile. Yin-yi was standing beside her. Yin-yi only smiled. His cheerful face was refreshing. It was undeniable that Yin-yi was very handsome. He was the kind of guy who looked clean. It was no wonder that Chen Yubing would raise her head to look at Yin-yi from time to time. The adoration in her eyes was obvious, especially when Yin-yi looked at his sister, sitting in front of the piano, with a smile on her pretty face, and her red lips curled up. He felt comforted. After all, in Yin-yi's heart, Qin Yiru had worked hard to raise the two of them until now. He felt that he could live a hard life, but he did not want his mother to suffer. Even more so, he did not want his sister to live at the bottom of society. In this era, not everyone could afford to learn the piano. Yin-yi had a huge wish in his heart. He hoped that he could work hard to get into a university and earn money to support his family after he graduated. Not only did he want to support his mother, but he also wanted his sister to live a good life. A good life where she could learn whatever she wanted. Of course, Yin-yi did not know that Yin Jian was the chairman of New Cruise. Chen Yubing stood aside. She could feel that Yin-yi had been watching her teach Yin Jian how to play the piano. Chen Yubing's heart was pounding. At the same time, Chen Yubing had an idea. She wanted to show off in front of Yin-yi. Little girl, can you stand up for a while? I'll play a song for you. Then I'll teach you. Chen Yubing tried her best to soften her voice as she spoke to Yun Jian. Yun Jian smirked and stood up. She wanted to see what tricks Chen Yubing was up to. When Chen Yubing caught Yin Yi watching from the corner of her eye, she took over the latter's spot eagerly. Placing both hands on the piano, she played a smooth and coherent tune. This was the most fluent and coherent piece she had ever played. As the gentle music played, the surrounding students who were busy practicing their New Year's Day performances could not help but stop to listen to Chen Yubing's performance. They could not help but exclaim. Chen Yubing glanced at the praises from the corner of her eyes. She was immensely pleased with herself, but there was also a trace of pride. She was so outstanding. How could Yin Yi not like her? The song ended. Chen Yubing gave up her seat and let Yun Jian sit in front of the piano again. She then spoke to Yun Jian gently. Little girl, you can try to learn the song I played just now. There was an indescribable sense of pride in her words. Yun Jian nodded gently. She paused for a moment before her fair and slender fingers touched the piano. Then, her hands suddenly became nimble. A song that everyone was familiar with flowed out from the piano under Yun Jian's fingers. It was indescribably beautiful. Wasn't this the song Chen Yubing played just now? Yun Yi's sister knew how to play too. Chapter 277. You know how to play this song. Just as everyone was flabbergasted and even Yun Yi widened her eyes, Chen Yubing's astonished voice rang with a hint of surprise and embarrassment. She knew how to play. Yun Yi's younger sister knew how to play the piano. Chen Yubing's current shock and awkwardness were indescribable. She had been showing off in front of Yun Jian just now, but the latter had been mocking her all along. She did not tell her. Yun Jian did not tell her that she knew how to play the piano. Was he trying to embarrass her? For a moment, Chen Yubing's face gradually darkened. Yeah, Xiao Jian, you know how to play the piano? In contrast to Chen Yubing's shock, Yin Yi was much calmer, but there was still a lot of shock and astonishment in that calmness. Guh, I learned this from Xiao Yin when I was in Xinjiang town. Yun Jian smiled. She was not lying. The original owner of the body had indeed gone to Lu Fian's house to learn piano from her for a while, when she was in Xinjiang town. It was because Lu Fian came from a well-to-do family. Her parents were both teachers, and she had learned piano from a teacher. The original owner of the body had also learned from Lu Fian for a period of time, but it was not very professional. Yun Jian smiled and said, But it's my first time hearing this song. You played it so well the first time you heard it. When everyone heard this, they were once again shocked. Chen Yubing, on the other hand, froze on the spot like she had been slapped hard. Yun Jian could play it so well after listening to it once? What was she then? She had almost scraped the skin off her hands to practice this song. Chen Yubing's face paled. Yun Yi smiled in relief, and placed his long fingers on Yun Jian's head to rub it gently. I see. He still remembered that Lu Fian was his younger sister's best friend. Amen. Yun Jian nodded with a smile. Right, Go, are you coming home today? Yun Jian asked with a blink, and changed the topic quickly. Chen Yubing was left out in the cold. Amen, I am. Yun Yi thought about it and nodded. For the sake of a good learning environment, Yun Yi had not been home for a few weeks. In spite of it, he was aware of the addition of Yun Zhu to the family, and expressed his warm welcome. Let's go to a restaurant today. Mom doesn't work overtime today. Treat it as a welcome party for Xiao Zhu, Yun Jian said with a smile. Sure. Yun Yi nodded, and went to pack his things. Xiao Jian Ge. To go back with you to go home. From beginning to end, Yun Yi did not spare Chen Yubing a second glance. On the other hand, Yun Jian and Yun Yi were already out of the school gate. As they made their way to the main road, they saw someone coming toward them. The person had short hair, and wore a short-sleeved t-shirt. He was drenched in sweat, and looked like he had just come back from jogging. It was none other than Su Haokol, who had just come back from jogging. As the son of a mafia boss, Su Haokol had always had the habit of exercising. When Su Haokol saw Yun Jian, he told Yun Yi with a smile. Your sister is here to pick you up from school. I'm so envious that you have such a great sister. Su Haokol even greeted Yun Jian as he spoke. Chapter 278. Yun Jian did not feel that Yun Yi's invitation was inappropriate. After all, Su Haokol was Yun Yi's best friend. Su Haokol had helped Yun Yi a lot when her family was poor. Yun Jian followed suit and said, "Yeah, let's go together. The more the merrier." Su Haokol grinned and said, "It's rare for little sister Yun Yi to invite me to a restaurant. If I don't go, I'll be disrespectful. Haha. So it's a deal. Let's meet at the usual place at 6 o'clock tonight," Yun Yi said with a smile. "Okay." Su Haokol nodded with a smile. Then, Yun Yi and Su Haokol said goodbye for the time being. Yun Yi and Yun Jian went home at the same time. Qin Yiru had wanted to hold a welcome party for a long time. She even invited Dong Ruan and Ce. Of course, on the surface, it was to hold a welcome party for Yun Ju. At the same time, it was also to thank Dong Ruan for taking her in during her most difficult time. As for the welcome party, it was not a grand ceremony. In fact, it was just a gathering of a group of people. Everyone gathered together for a meal and a chat. It was that simple. When Yun Jian got home, Qin Yiru had already prepared everything. Qin Yiru even specially bought a new set of clothes for Xiao Yunju, which added a lot of handsomeness to Yunju's small face. Sister-brother. When Xiao Yunju saw Yun Jian and Yun Yi, he could not help but run over with his short legs and happily twirl in front of Yun Yi and Yun Jian. Yun Jian squatted down and pinched Xiao Yunju's tender and smooth skin as she asked, "Little Zhu, have you been obedient in school recently?" Little Zhu has been very obedient. The teacher even praised little Zhu today. Xiao Yunju puffed out his chest and showed his masculinity. Then Xiao Yunju suddenly remembered something. He reached into his trouser pocket and finally found something. It was a pack of Green Arrow chewing gum. "Sister, brother Ce came to school to pick little Zhu up today. Because little Zhu was praised by the teacher, brother Ce even bought little Zhu bubble gum. It's really delicious. Little Zhu even left 2 pieces for you and brother." As he spoke, Xiao Yunju reached out and took out the remaining 2 pieces of chewing gum from the pack and stuffed them into Yun Jian and Yun Yi's hands. Then, Xiao Yunju looked at Yun Jian and Yun Yi with his pink and tender face. When she heard Xiao Yunju call Ce brother Ce, Yun Jian's mouth twitched. However, when she looked at the little guy in front of her, who was bought over by Ce with a pack of chewing gum, she smiled helplessly. Then, under Xiao Yunju's expectant gaze, she tore open the pack of chewing gum and chewed it. Yun Yi did the same. However, when Yun Jian chewed the chewing gum, she saw Ce in a black casual outfit appear at the top of the stairs. He had both hands in his trouser pockets. His handsome face revealed a trace of laziness as he strode down the stairs with his long and slender legs. Brother Ce. At this moment, the little guy who was standing in front of Yun Jian and watching her, and Yun Yi chewing gum suddenly shouted excitedly. In the next second, Xiao Yunju ran over to Ce at the speed of a wisp of smoke and circled around him. Ce habitually reached out his fair and slender fingers and rubbed Xiao Yunju's hair. His beautiful starry eyes looked at Yun Jian with an irresistible tenderness. Chapter 279. Hearing Ce's sudden greeting, Yun Jian's red lips that were chewing gum paused, and she almost swallowed it. "It's from Xiaozhu, of course it's delicious," Yun Jian said with a smile as she looked at Xiao Yunju who was surrounding Ce from afar. "He Jejia, this is Ce Gija's reward for Xiaozhu." Xiao Yunju popped out from Ce's side and looked at Yun Jian with a grin. His nimble behavior was as adorable as it could get. Yun Jian smiled and looked at Ce gratefully. She owed her younger brother in her past life. She was grateful from the bottom of her heart that Ce could treat him so well and make Xiaozhu so happy. "Are you all ready?" It was then that Qin Yiru hooked her arm around Dong Ruan's, and both of them walked down the stairs intimately. Qin Yiru, who had just gone upstairs for a while, had put on a new fur coat. It was a brand new one that Dong Ruan had chosen for her. It accentuated her complexion when she wore it. Now that Qin Yiru had saved some money, other than her daily expenses, Qin Yiru no longer had to wear the old clothes that she had mended. Since she was happy, she steeled her heart and bought a fur coat as well. Of course, Qin Yiru had also bought clothes for Yun Jian and Yunyi before that. We can go now. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes, her delicate and pretty face looking even more alluring. She went over to hold Xiao Yunju's hand, and walked out of the house with Qin Yiru and the rest. The group of people walked over. Qin Yiru planned to treat everyone to a good meal this time, so she chose a 4-star hotel in Longmen City, Qingyan Hotel. She only invited Dong Ruan and her family. Although this hotel's expenses were relatively high, she could still afford a meal if she gritted her teeth and took out a few months' worth of her salary. This Qingyan Hotel was the old place that Yin Yi and Su Haokol had mentioned. Back then, when Su Haokol was being hunted down by a sniper, Yun Jian managed to kill the sniper instead. When they arrived at the entrance of Qingyan Hotel, they saw that Su Haokol was already standing there waiting for them. When Su Haokol saw Qin Yiru and Dong Ruan, she smiled and greeted them. "Hello, aunties." Su Haokol had met Qin Yiru before. After all, he was Yin Yi's best friend, and they used to be friends. "Oh, it's Xiaozha. Long time no see." Qin Yiru greeted him cheerfully as well. Su Haokol went up to Yin Yi after greeting her. He even turned to greet Yin Jian with a teasing tone. "Hi, Yin Yi Mimi, we meet again. Is it inconvenient for us to sit down and chat later?" Just as he finished his flirting, Su Haokol felt the air around them turn colder. He turned to look and saw the handsome man standing beside Yun Jian looking at him with a penetrating gaze. That gaze seemed to want to kill him. Su Haokol could not help shuddering. "Ahaha. I think I'll sit with thee later." Su Haokol rubbed his nose and smiled awkwardly. Yun Jian pursed her lips. She watched as Qin Yiru and Dong Ruan walked into the hotel arm in arm. Yun Yi and Su Haokol followed them in. She stood in the same spot and held Xiao Yunju's hand. Suddenly, she bent down and whispered into Xiao Yunju's ear. "Xiaozhu, kick him." Ce was standing beside Xiao Yunju. At this moment, Xiao Yunju was sandwiched between the two of them. When Xiao Yunju heard Yun Jian's words, he suddenly raised his beautiful eyes and asked Yun Jian loudly and ignorantly, "Sister, why do you want me to kick Ce Gij?" Chapter 280. Yun Jian didn't think that Xiao Yunju would actually say what she secretly said to him out loud. She immediately covered Xiao Yunju's mouth and pulled Xiao Yunju towards the hotel. No, Xiaozhu, you heard wrong," Yun Jian said as she stroked her brother's short hair. Looking at the blush that flashed across Yun Jian's rosy cheeks, Ce pressed his lips together and flashed a charming smile before following Yun Jian into the hotel in large strides. He followed Yun Jian's footsteps. Qin Yiru had already reserved a table. After they sat down, the dishes were served. Naturally, they didn't sit in a private room. They sat in the large living room on the first floor. The private room was much more expensive than the large living room. After all, Clear Rhythm Hotel was a 4-star hotel. The only place Qin Yiru could afford was the large living room on the first floor. The dishes were served one after another. Yun Jian picked up a large drumstick for Xiao Yunju. Xiao Yunju was scarily skinny. He probably didn't have many good meals, because he lived with Yun Hailan for the past 6 months. After all, Yun Hailan's family was even worse off than Yun Jian's, when she had just been reborn. "Xiaozhu, eat more." Yun Jian placed a large piece of drumstick into Xiao Yunju's bowl. Who knew that the moment the drumstick was placed in Xiao Yunju's bowl, Xiao Yunju would shake his little head. He used his chopsticks to pick up the drumstick and placed it in Ce's bowl. At the same time, Xiao Yunju pouted and said with his pink lips, "Xiaozhu doesn't like drumsticks. I want to give them to Ce Gij." Yun Jian had a huge question mark in her heart. When did Xiaozhu become so clingy to Ce? How could she, as his older sister, not know? "Xiaozhu, if you don't like drumsticks, don't put them in Ce Gij's bowl. It's impolite," Yun Jian said as she stroked Yunju's smooth short hair. Besides, she used her chopsticks to pick up the drumstick. Ce wouldn't eat it, right? However, just as Yun Jian finished lecturing Xiao Yunju, Ce picked up the drumstick from his bowl and gently swallowed it. Yun Jian swallowed and was speechless. But Ce Gij said that if Xiaozhu doesn't like it, I should give it to Ce Gij because I can't waste food. Xiaozhu blinked his eyes and looked at Yun Jian innocently. Yun Jian retorted at Yunju's words. How dare he instigate Xiao Yunju like this? Yunjian suddenly turned her head and glared at Ce. She looked just like a wife complaining about her husband. Ce pursed his lips and gave her a handsome smile. Seeing Ce's handsome smile, Yunjian's heart suddenly stopped. She quickly lowered her head and quickly swallowed the food in her bowl. As for Yunjian and Ce's actions, no one noticed them. Su Haokol was busy chatting with Yunyi. Qin Yiru and Dong Wan were also happily chatting. Only Xiao Yunju, who was sandwiched between Yunjian and Ce, raised his head and looked around. What were big sister and Ce Gij doing? Oh, you guys are also here for dinner? What a coincidence. At this moment, a familiar female voice called out from behind Yunjian. Yunjian turned her head and saw Chen Yubing, who had changed into a glazed dress and braided her hair. She smiled and greeted them as she walked over. It's her. Yunjian frowned. Chen Yubing walked over and sized up Yunyi. Then, she used a familiar voice to speak to Qin Yiru. Chapter 281. In fact, it was not a coincidence. Chen Yubing had overheard the conversation between Yunjian and Yunyi in the music room. In addition, one of Chen Yubing's friends overheard Yunyi and Su Haokol saying, "See you at the usual place at the school gate." Weren't these the usual places that Yunyi and Su Haokol frequented? Chen Yubing had always been secretly in love with Yunyi. How could she not know? Thus she came here. Of course, she deliberately redressed herself before coming here, because it was very likely that she would meet Yunyi's mother today. However, it turned out that she really did meet Yunyi's mother, Qin Yiru. Thus, she quickly came over to greet her. Oh, so you're Yunyi's classmate. Hello. Qin Yiru quickly stood up and greeted Chen Yubing when she heard that Chen Yubing was Yunyi's classmate. Qin Yiru had always been friendly to her son and daughter's friends. This was normal. At this time Yunyi, who was sitting at the side, frowned silently. By the way, classmate, have you eaten? Do you want to sit down and have dinner with us? Qin Yiru did not find anything wrong. Instead, she asked Chen Yubing very kindly. This auntie, won't it be embarrassing? Chen Yubing looked around and then showed an embarrassed expression. However, she still sat down at a seat not far from Yunyi. In fact, Qin Yiru did not really intend to let Chen Yubing sit down. She was just being polite. However, when she saw that Chen Yubing really sat down, Qin Yiru could only go along with it. Qin Yiru smiled and said politely, No, since you are Yi's classmate, you can be more casual. Yunjian did not expect Chen Yubing to be so shameless. She turned her head and saw her brother frowning. His frown was so tight that it could kill a fly. Then, with Chen Yubing's self-conscious participation, the atmosphere became less cheerful. Yunjian could even feel Chen Yubing's eyes darting towards Ce's face from time to time after she sat down. Yunjian immediately felt that this feeling was very unpleasant. In fact, Yunjian's intuition was right. It was only after Chen Yubing sat down that she saw Ce. His perfect face was like a work of art carved by God. Anyone who sat beside him would pale in comparison. In spite of it, Chen Yubing only took a few more glances at him. She knew herself well enough to know that a man like that would never belong to her. So she shifted her attention back to Yunyi. Even after Chen Yubing joined in, everyone picked up their bowls and ate their own food, not saying a word. The atmosphere was even more subtle. After dinner, Chen Yubing shamelessly followed them all the way out of Qingyan Hotel. Chen Yubing even trailed behind Qin Yiru, like she was trying to curry favor with Qin Yiru. She could not help finding topics to flatter the latter. Auntie, it's rare for us to get together. Why don't we go shopping together? I saw that the newly opened Pacific department store has a lot of new clothes that will fit you perfectly. Why don't we go take a look? However, Chen Yubing thought in her heart, which woman doesn't like to be beautiful? She first took care of Yunyi's mother. She was not afraid that Yunyi would not be moved by her. Well, Qin Yiru frowned and glanced at Chen Yubing awkwardly. Qin Yiru had indeed heard about the newly opened department store in Longmen City, called Pacific Department Store. Women love to be beautiful, and Qin Yiru was no exception. However, Chen Yubing had taken this into account, but not the other one. The rent at Pacific Department Store was expensive, causing the merchants to raise their prices several times. Even the cheapest adult clothes cost a few hundred to 1,000 each. The quality and design of the clothes were naturally excellent. However, treating everyone to a meal today had cost Qin Yiru so much, and now Qin Yubing was suggesting to pick out such an expensive piece of clothing for her? How could she afford to go? My mom has something on tonight. She can't go. Just as Qin Yiru was frowning, Yin Jian spoke to Qin Yubing without much anger in her tone. Chapter 282. Yes. Miss Qin Yubing, I'm sorry, we have something on tonight. I'm afraid we can't go shopping with you. Qin Yiru was smart enough to know that Yin Jian was helping her out, so she spoke up. Qin Yubing, you should go. It's time to go home and practice your zither. Yin Yi, who had been silent, could not help telling Qin Yubing. His words carried a strong sense of urgency and impatience. Qin Yubing, who was instantly isolated, bit her lip and left under Yin Yi's impatient gaze, leaving behind a reluctant statement. Then I'll go first. See you in school, Senior Yin Yi. Qin Yubing's tone sounded like she was unwilling to let go. Yin Jian's brows furrowed tightly. She would never let a woman like her get close to her brother again. Due to Qin Yubing's appearance, the group's cheerful mood was mostly dampened, but Qin Yiru and Dong Wuan were still smiling along the way. Yin Jian did not know that Qin Yubing was unwilling to give up. Of course, it was her unwillingness that led to Qin Yubing's tragic end. Of course, this was a story for another time. Ce left Longmen City temporarily due to some matters. Yin Jian did not see him for the next few days. Yin Jian went back to her usual life as well. New Cruise was on the right track now. Although the sales volume was not as shocking as when the auto show was first held, the net profit of tens of millions a month was stable. Zhang Jifan and his buddies were overjoyed. They had never thought that their decision to start a business with Yin Jian back then would be so much more profitable than when they were loan sharks. More importantly, their current jobs were honorable. This was especially true for Zhang Jifan. Whenever he walked out into the crowd, people would point at him and exclaim, "Look, that's the big boss of New Cruise." Yin Jian's monthly income was in the millions, and even tens of millions. It was her privilege as the director of New Cruise. At this time, there were only a few days left before the New Year's Day performance. It was only about a week away. The students who were rehearsing for the New Year's Day performance were all busy. Yin Jian, who did not sign up for the performance, seemed to be very free. Yin Jian's Dragon Gate No. 1 High School and Yin Yi's first high school jointly organized the New Year's cultural performance. As the former was the best junior high school in Longmen City, while the latter was the best senior high school in Longmen City, both schools had reached a consensus. Every year, during the New Year's Day performance, the two schools would each come up with 15 performances, for a total of 30 performances. After that, all the students from the two schools would gather together to watch. Finally, they would evaluate which school's students performed better and so on. Of course, this was also to increase the interest of the students. It was not yet time for the New Year's cultural performance, but the students were already restless. After school this Friday, Yin Jian, Zhang Xiaofeng, and Zhang Jifan went out with the crowd. Just as the four of them reached the school gate, Yin Jian was stopped by a tall and bashful boy whose cheeks were flushed. He looked rather shy. "Hey, Yin Jian," the boy called out to Yin Jian softly, but his voice was soon drowned out by the hustle and bustle of the crowd. In spite of it, Yin Jian still heard it with her sharp ears. She turned to see Lu Haoze standing on a high flight of stairs, calling out to her in a low, mosquito-like voice. Chapter 283. When Yin Jian walked over, Zhang Xiaofeng and the rest followed. Zhang Xiaofeng, Chen Xini, and Ling Yichen had seen Lu Haoze before, so they were not unfamiliar with him. "You guys go ahead first." Yin Jian turned to look at Zhang Xiaofeng and the rest and reminded them. Zhang Xiaofeng and the rest would go to New Cruise to report to Zhang Jifan whenever they were not studying on the weekends. The three of them were determined to learn from Zhang Jifan. At the same time, they wanted to make a name for themselves in the business world. We'll go ahead first then." Zhang Xiaofeng nodded at Yun Jian and left with Chen Sini and Ling Yichen. Yun Jian turned to look at Lu Haozi. She narrowed her eyes and said, "Let's find a quiet place to talk." Yun Jian and Lu Haozi found a quiet place and looked at each other. Lu Haozi's cheeks flushed as Yun Jian stared at him. He looked like an adorable little brother. He dared not look into Yun Jian's eyes. Instead, he lowered his head and looked at Yun Jian. "Our elder is back. I told him that you're looking for him. So he asked me to tell you when you're free to meet him." Lu Haozi said all this in one breath. At this time, his face was as red as an apple. "I'm free now." Yun Jian moved her red lips and smiled. Therefore, Lu Haozi brought Yun Jian to his house to meet his elder. Yun Jian followed Lu Haozi back to the school gate. They took bus route 11 from the school gate to the east station, and then took the rural bus. It was a bumpy ride of about 1.5 hours before they arrived at Lu Haozi's house. Lu Haozi's house was located in a small town. It was quite far from Xinjiang town, almost one in the east and one in the west. Lu Haozi's family lived in a courtyard house. Lu Haozi's family wasn't the only one living in this courtyard house. Their direct family members, side branches, and even the family elders were all living here. The Lu family was an ancient family, and could be considered a hidden family now. At the same time, all the relatives lived in the same house, and had never been separated. When Yun Jian and Lu Haozi walked into the courtyard, an old lady sitting in the courtyard and enjoying the evening breeze saw them and shouted, "Xiao Zhe brought back a girl this time. That was incredible. She can't be Xiao Zhe's little girlfriend, right? She looks so beautiful." The old lady's nonsensical words made Lu Haozi's cheeks burn even hotter, and even his earlobes turned red. Lu Haozi hurriedly replied to the old lady, "Grandma, don't talk nonsense. This is my friend Yun Jian. She's here to see the elders." "Oh, so that's how it is. I thought you were enlightened." The old lady came to a sudden realization. She smiled as she watched Lu Haozi lead Yun Jian into the house. This was just my grandma talking nonsense. Please don't take offense," Lu Haozi said to Yun Jian in a fluster. "It's fine." Yun Jian narrowed her eyes and smiled. "Ha ha ha, Xiao Zhe, you brought her here so quickly?" At that moment a strong male voice was heard. An old man in his 60s or 70s walked in with a smile. "Elder," Lu Haozi called out when he saw the old man. Elder Lu waved his hand to signal for him to be quiet. Elder Lu then walked around Yun Jian twice. He said to her, "So you're his disciple?" "TSK. I didn't think that old man would accept a disciple." When Yun Jian heard Elder Lu's tone, she instantly believed that he knew the old man, who had taught her many skills in her previous life. She couldn't wait to ask Elder Lu, "You know him? Then do you know where he is now?" Elder Lu laughed heartily at first, but then he suddenly stopped laughing. His expression suddenly became serious. He did not say anything, but only spat out 2 words, "Yulong mainland." When Elder Lu spat out these 4 words, Yun Jian's eyelids twitched. Chapter 284. After Elder Lu finished speaking, he returned to his original cheerful self. He really was a spirited old man. "Ha ha ha, little girl. Sit down and have a cup of tea first. There's no rush." Elder Lu stroked his beard that he had deliberately kept, smiling as he pointed to a high stool for Yun Jian to sit down. "Okay." Yun Jian naturally knew that these things could not be explained in a few sentences. She quickly sat down on the high stool as Elder Lu said. Lu Haozi stood obediently at the side like a well-behaved child. He brewed a pot of tea for Yun Jian, poured it into a cup, and handed it to Yun Jian. "Thank you," Yun Jian said softly to Lu Haozi with pursed lips. Lu Haozi, however, walked shyly behind Elder Lu. "Hey little girl, since you're that stinky old man's disciple, then ask whatever you want to know. As long as I know, I'll tell you." Elder Lu sat down opposite Yun Jian, stroking his beard as he spoke. Yun Jian could tell from Elder Lu's words that Elder Lu had a great relationship with her previous life's master. She was not in a hurry to ask. Instead, she rubbed the teacup gently with her fingertips, remaining silent for a while. Then, even Elder Lu could not help but marvel at how a little girl like her could be so calm. Yun Jian suddenly raised her head and gave Elder Lu a slight smile. You're also from the Yulong continent. Elder Lu's hand, that was stroking his beard, froze. He did not expect that this little girl was not asking him a question. But Yun Jian's words were not a question, but an affirmation. You little girl. How did you know? Elder Lu stroked his chest and stood up in surprise. That's none of your business. Yun Jian smiled and stood up with Elder Lu. After a moment of silence, she continued. Elder Lu, if I'm not wrong, it's not just you. Everyone in the Lu family is from the Yulong continent. Even Lu Haoze, who was standing at the side, was dumbfounded. Lu Haoze had never heard of the Yulong continent, but he could tell that this non-existent continent was definitely not on Earth. Elder. Lu Haoze couldn't help but ask Elder Lu. His tone was filled with doubt and disbelief. Elder Lu, on the other hand, acted as if he had been seen through. He stopped pretending and muttered, That's right. I and even the entire Lu family migrated from the Yulong continent. Elder Lu was silent for 2 seconds before continuing. But now that I think about it, it has been many years since I moved here with the Lu family. This old man and your master have not seen each other for over 20 years. But I can guarantee that if you can't find that old man in this world, he must have returned to Yulong mainland. As for the other matters of the Yulong continent, it's not convenient for me to talk about them. Little girl, if you're fated, go and find out for yourself. The last few sentences were said with a deep sigh. After Elder Lu finished speaking, he stroked his long beard and walked away with a sigh. Yun Jian didn't ask her to stay. She didn't come in vain. At least she knew where her master had gone in her previous life. Yulong mainland. It turned out that she had accidentally entered another world in the ancient tombstone cave. To be honest, Yun Jian heaved a sigh of relief when she found out where her master had gone. But at least she had a direction now. She knew where her master had gone. It was no wonder that she couldn't find her master's whereabouts even after mobilizing all her forces in her previous life. Chapter 285. It was already very late when they returned from Lu Haoze's house. Yun Jian did not go to the military training camp today, so she fell asleep the moment she got home. Nothing special happened in the next few days. 7 days later, the annual New Year's Day performance that the students had been looking forward to officially began. Early in the morning, Chun Sini screamed excitedly. Chun Sini was participating in the performance at night. Her performance was singing. Chun Sini had a good voice, and the songs she sang were very pleasant to listen to. However, as usual, the New Year's Day performance was held at night, but Chun Sini was already excited and nervous early in the morning. Stop howling. Hurry up and prepare your song. Hee hee. Zhang Xiaofeng pushed away Chun Sini's head that was circling around Yun Jian and leaned over. Master, I've already practiced the chopstick throwing you taught me last time. When are you free? I'll show you. Zhang Xiaofeng said to Yun Jian excitedly. Yun Jian nodded and narrowed her eyes. The New Year's Day performance was held at night, so the students were in class during the day. Because Longmen First High School and First High School were holding the New Year's Day performance together, the venue was Yin Yi's school. As Chun Sini was participating in the performance, she went to prepare in the afternoon. Because she had to put on makeup and change into her stage costume, she went early. In the evening, Yun Jian followed the school's organization and walked to First High School with her classmates. At this time, the New Year's Day performance had not started yet. Therefore, the students could take a look around First High School. Yun Jian went to the dressing room of the students participating in the performance. She went to the dressing room to look for her brother, Yun Yi. When she entered the dressing room with light steps, she could not help frowning when she scanned the room and did not see her brother, Yun Yi. Brother was not here. Under normal circumstances, it was impossible for Yun Yi to not be here. After all, it was almost time for the opening of the New Year's literary performance. And Yun Jian knew that Yun Yi's program was ranked very high. Jian. A silhouette dashed into the dressing room in a hurry. Chun Sini, who was halfway done with her makeup, sprinted in and grabbed Yun Jian's hand, telling her in a breathless voice, Yun Jian, I'm not going to let you go. Jian, I saw your brother being dragged out by a bunch of gangsters just now. I think it's because of a girl. She said she's going to beat him up. Go take a look. Chun Sini took a few deep breaths. She was still putting on her makeup when a group of people suddenly rushed in from the door and directly grabbed a boy who was bullying her. Taking a closer look, she realized that the boy was her Jianjian's brother. Listening to the gangster's insults, they seemed to have taken him away because of a girl. Chun Sini was only halfway done with her makeup when she stopped and ran out to look for Yun Jian. It was only after a round of searching that she sprinted back when she heard that Jian Jian was heading to the dressing room. Those who came to look for trouble on the eve of the New Year's literary performance were definitely up to no good. Yun Jian's brows scrunched up at that. Chapter 286. Where? Yun Jian ran out with Chun Sini. Over there. I saw them go that way. Chun Sini didn't even have time to catch her breath as she hurriedly led Yun Jian out. First high school large field. Because the New Year's Day performance was about to begin, there was almost no one in the field. Even the teachers were busy at the front desk of the New Year's Day performance, so it became a good place to fight. At the same time, Yun Yi was being pinned down by a group of gangsters who outnumbered him. Yun Yi's handsome face didn't have a trace of fear. A blonde with dyed blonde hair who stood in front of Yun Yi was pointing at his nose and scolding him. Hey! Do you know who I am? How dare you fight with me over a woman? Chen Yubing is the woman I like. How dare you fight with me over her? The blonde-haired guy cursed fiercely. His saliva almost sprayed onto Yun Yi's handsome face. Heh! Yun Yi only sneered and was too lazy to explain. He fought with the blonde-haired guy over Chen Yubing? Are you kidding me? Alright, you're still laughing. The blonde-haired guy's small eyes narrowed into slits. He clenched his fist and was about to hit Yun Yi. Don't. Brother Huang, stop. At this moment a soft and delicate voice cut in from the gap. Chen Yubing was seen swaying her long hair. She frowned and ran over with a trace of anxiety on her face. Brother Huang, don't hit Yun Yi Sr. Don't fight for me, don't. Chen Yubing revealed a scared and worried expression. Chen Yubing's words made it seem like she really had something to do with Yun Yi. When the blonde-haired guy heard this, he became even angrier. He looked at Chen Yubing and said to her in a gentle tone, Bing Bing, just watch. I'll let this guy know the price of fighting with me over you. This is a contest between us men. Chen Yubing's words earlier had completely reversed the black and white facts. He even made the blonde think that Chen Yubing was innocent, and that Yun Yi was the one who wanted to snatch Chen Yubing away from him. With that, the blonde raised his leg and kicked at Yun Yi's abdomen, who was being held down by his brothers. Just as the yellow-haired man lifted his leg to kick Yun Yi, a fist-sized rock flew towards the yellow-haired man's raised leg. Coincidentally, at the same time, the rock smashed into the yellow-haired man's acupoint at an astonishing speed. Roar! A heart-wrenching pain came from his leg. The yellow-haired man retracted his leg that was about to kick out. He was in so much pain that he knelt on the ground. On the other side, Yun Jian and Chun Sini, who had thrown the large stone, had already walked over. You want to hit my brother? Have you asked for my permission? Yun Jian let out a breath, and a cold and sharp gaze swept through the entire audience. Xiao Jian. When Yun Yi saw his younger sister, he was reminded of his sister's skills and flashed a radiant smile. F*CKU, how dare you throw a rock at me? Little girl, you've got guts. Do you know who I am? The yellow-haired man wailed as he sat on the ground. Before the yellow-haired man could finish his shriek, his head was hit by a pair of broken shoes. In the blink of an eye, Yun Jian had taken down the yellow-haired man's brothers. She even kicked one of the men's shoes away, hitting the man's face directly. Then, Yun Jian's casual warning rang. I don't know who you are, but remember, if there's a next time, I'll stab this knife in my hand into your heart. As she spoke, Yun Jian was already toying with the butterfly knife that had appeared out of nowhere like magic. King dare? The yellow-haired man felt like his dignity as a man was being trampled on after being hit by a pair of smelly shoes and being threatened. So he hollered loudly. Let's see if I dare to. Yun Jian raised her voice and flung the butterfly knife in her hand out right after she said that. The yellow-haired man and his men shuddered, because they saw the butterfly knife that had been thrown out by Yun Jian had already stabbed into Chen Yubing's braids after she spoke. It was so close that the butterfly knife would not have pierced Chen Yubing's hair, but her head instead. Chapter 287. Chen Yubing, who was wearing a luxurious hairstyle meant for performing on stage, immediately felt the butterfly knife flying towards her in fright. After that, Chen Yubing could even feel the butterfly knife stabbing into her hair. She shrieked in fear. Ha! Scared. Yun Jian shifted her gaze to Chen Yubing. Yun Jian then walked over slowly and pulled her butterfly knife from Chen Yubing's head with a fake smile. Looking at Chen Yubing, Yun Jian lost her patience and told Chen Yubing directly, "My brother doesn't like you. You'd better give up now. I'll say this first. Otherwise, I'll blow your head off if there's a next time." When Yun Jian said the last sentence, she flung the butterfly knife in her hand. Chen Yubing the blonde, and the rest paled in fright. "Senior Yun, is this true?" Chen Yubing had always been confident. She did not believe Yun Jian's words. She was so outstanding. Which guy would not like her? Yun did not like her? What Xiao Jian said is what I mean. Yun continued and patted his suit in an attempt to dust it off. He had changed into a decent suit for his performance on stage today. Yun looked like a gentleman who had walked out of a fairy tale, handsome and gentle. Chen Yubing slumped to the floor like a puddle of mud after hearing Yun Yi's words. She clenched her fists, her eyes brimming with resentment. Why? Why did that shameless woman Yun Jian do this? It must be her. Yun Jian must have forced her brother to say that he did not like her. Chen Yubing did not believe that any man could escape from her. When she was so outstanding, she would not rest until she achieved her goal. Yun could be considered to have escaped death today. If Yun Jian had not made it in time, he would not have been able to avoid a fierce battle with the blonde and his gang. This way his clothes would definitely get dirty. And the New Year's Day arts performance was about to begin. If Yun Jian did not rush over, perhaps Yun would be held back, and would not be able to make it in time for the performance. At this time, Yun was ready to go on stage, while Chun Sini ran back to the dressing room to touch up the rest of her makeup. Yun Jian entered the venue in order, and sat with a group of students who were watching the New Year's Day performance. The first program was Yun Yi's. Yun played the guitar very well, and she played it very well. At the end of the song, she won a round of applause. By the time Chun Sini went on stage, the program was already halfway through. In fact, there were only a few kinds of performances on New Year's Day. Singing, dancing, playing musical instruments, acting in plays, and so on. Not long after Chun Sini finished her song and got off the stage after winning the applause, a teacher ran in from outside and picked up the loudspeaker in a panic. The teacher held the microphone and used a frightened tone to shout to the entire school, "Students, quick! Evacuate the scene!" A group of criminals appeared in a factory not far from the school, and they even planted a time bomb there. It's said to be the latest type of bomb, and it's very powerful. If the bomb explodes, this place will be razed to the ground. Chapter 288. The teacher hollered. Due to the urgency of the situation, he did not even have the time to catch his breath. In spite of it, the teacher was quite considerate. If he had met someone who only cared about himself, he would probably have run away the moment he learned of the danger. He would not have risked his life to come here and inform the students to evacuate. Ah, what? There's a bomb buried nearby. Are we going to die? Sob, I don't want to die. Run. Just as the teacher was done, the students present became agitated. There was only one expression on everyone's face: fear, panic, and terror. For a moment, the scene was extremely chaotic. Everyone ran towards the exit. Students, don't be agitated. Don't panic. Please leave in an orderly manner. Faced with such a sudden situation, there were still teachers who stood up and pretended to be calm to host the event. Although the New Year's Day performance had yet to end, who would have the time to pay attention to this when their lives were threatened? Although there were teachers helping the students to evacuate in an orderly manner, there were still some who were so scared that they could not even move their legs. One such example was Chen Yubing, who had just returned. Chen Yubing was so scared that she could not even move her legs. In the past, she would definitely pester Yin Yi whenever something like this happened. However, when Chen Yubing turned her gaze to Yin Yi out of habit, she saw that Yin Jian had already gone to Yin Yi's side before her. Yin Jian was not in a hurry to leave. Instead, she went to her elder brother, Yin Yi, and told him, "Go, you go first." With that, Yin Jian turned to walk to the factory where the time bomb was buried. Yin Yi's brows knitted tightly as he grabbed his sister's arm and questioned, "Xiao Jian, what are you going to do?" "Go, don't bother. Don't worry about it, you go first. There's only 10 minutes left before the time bomb explodes. If we don't deactivate the device after that, this place will be razed to the ground." Yin Jian told Yin Yi with a look up. "What about you?" Yin Yi knew that there was a time bomb in the factory, but his sister still went there. Naturally, he couldn't just stand by and watch. He raised his voice and shouted. Just as Yin Jian was about to speak again, Zhang Xiaofeng's loud shout came from the side. "Master, why haven't you left yet? Let's go." At such a dangerous moment, all the students were busy running for their lives. Everyone wanted to leave as soon as possible. Yin Jian turned her head and saw Zhang Xiaofeng and the other two looking at her anxiously. She would be lying if she said she wasn't touched. However, at least Zhang Xiaofeng, Chen Xinyi, and Ling Yichen were not in a hurry to escape with the crowd at such a dangerous moment. Instead, they ran back to ask her to escape with them. "You guys go first," Yin Jian repeated. She didn't leave because Gejun Jian had already sent a text message to all the Special Forces members about the time bomb in the factory. There were only 10 minutes left before the time bomb would detonate. Coincidentally, the time bomb in the factory was a new type of bomb invented by kosher mercenaries, the AK-4. Other than the higher-ups of kosher mercenaries, the bomb disposal experts here probably had no idea how to deactivate this new type of bomb. Initially, Yin Jian could ignore it. Although she was now an official member of the Special Forces, she could ignore such matters to a certain extent. However, why was the kosher mercenaries' AK-4 time bomb here? Chapter 289. I'll be fine, I promise. Yin Jian promised when she saw that Yin Yi and the others were still waiting for her to leave with them. She then grinned, baring her pearly white teeth. "I'm just going to take a look. I'm not stupid. Of course I won't do something like throwing my life away." She said that to reassure Yin Yi and the others. But Xiao Jianyu, Yin Yi was still worried. His younger sister was skilled, but it did not mean that she could run faster than a bomb. "Go, when have I ever lied to you? Hurry and leave first. You'll be safe as long as you're 1,000 meters away from here. The bomb can only affect an area of 2 kilometers at most," Yin Jian said again. Hearing his younger sister's promise, Yin Yi finally let go of Yin Jian's arm. He could only clench his fists as his knuckles cracked. "Okay, let's go. Xiao Jian, you must come back safely," Yin Yi told Yin Jian through clenched teeth, his tone brimming with concern. "Amen, I understand, brother," Yin Jian replied and turned to run toward the factory. Yin Yi clenched his fists. For the first time he felt his helplessness. Everything that happened in the past, including him being caught by the blonde and his gang just now, it was his younger sister who stood up and took care of it. She protected him. As her brother, he could only stand behind her. Even just now, when he watched Yin Jian walk toward the factory that could detonate the time bomb at any time, he was powerless. It was not that he did not follow because he was afraid of death, but he was afraid of being Yin Jian's burden. For the first time, Yin Yi had the thought of becoming stronger. Yin Jian's pace quickened. If there were still pedestrians on the street, they would feel a gust of wind brushing past them. The factory was just opposite DE High School, less than 10 meters away. At this time, a security line had been set up near the factory, and the nearby residents had also been evacuated. Yin Jian sprinted over, but was stopped by a police officer before he could cross the security line. "Young lady, it's dangerous here. The criminals had installed a time bomb inside. Get out of here." The police officer standing outside the guard line shouted at her. Before the bomb disposal experts made any sound, The duty of these police officers was to guard this place and prevent anyone from approaching. Of course, if even the bomb disposal experts couldn't do anything in the end, then as the last batch to evacuate, they would retreat to a safe area in the shortest time possible. "Let me in if you don't want to get blown up." Yun Jian ignored the police officer's shouts. She frowned and was about to step into the cordoned-off area. "Stop, stop. This is really not a place where a little girl like you can enter. The bomb disposal experts inside are carrying out the final rescue. Little girl, don't delay the experts' thoughts because of your willful behavior. Can you bear the consequences of this?" When the police officer saw that Yun Jian wanted to force her way in, he stood up to stop her. There was a hint of impatience in his tone. This time, Yun Jian didn't continue to waste time with the police officer. She stood on the spot and somersaulted over the police officer's head. She even crossed the security line. After landing, she ran into the factory under the police officer's shocked gaze. The police officer didn't even have time to stop her. Inside the factory, a cylindrical time bomb was installed in the center of the factory. The stopwatch on the bomb was counting down at the speed of light. This time bomb was surrounded by several bomb disposal experts. At this time, the bomb disposal experts' foreheads were covered in cold sweat. The internal structure of the time bomb was much more complicated than they had imagined. They had never seen such a bomb before. Just as the bomb disposal experts were about to give up on contacting the device and let the last batch of people make the final preparations and retreat out of the bomb's range. Chapter 290. Such a confident, tender, and beautiful young girl's voice was heard. All the bomb disposal experts, including the police and special forces who were waiting for the bomb disposal experts' results, all looked towards the door. They saw a 15 or 16-year-old girl with fair skin, beautiful features, and a hint of playfulness and beauty appear in everyone's eyes. It had to be said that Yun Jian's appearance was indeed shocking. Even if she was placed in a group of beauties, she would still be easily distinguishable. Where did this little girl come from? Hurry up and chase her out. Where is this place, and what's the situation? How dare they let a troublemaker in here? The experts need to think calmly before they can properly deactivate the device. Hurry up and chase this little girl out. Standing at the very front, a special police officer with a face full of stubble, who wasn't tall but was wearing a police uniform, pointed at Yun Jian and shouted. Without a doubt, this special police officer was the superior of the surrounding police and special forces. Of course, the words that Yun Jian just said, coupled with her age, would only make the people present think that she was here to cause trouble. This wasn't something that couldn't be understood. Yun Jian ignored the special police officer's call and walked straight towards the time bomb. What is she doing? Hurry up and catch her. Don't let this little girl touch the bomb. This bomb is very powerful. If it accidentally explodes, all of us will die. The special police officer with a face full of stubble saw Yun Jian walking towards the bomb, and he quickly shouted in fear. The power of this bomb was very strong. The power of the gunpowder inside was different from normal bombs. Once this bomb detonated, it would definitely affect everything within a 1-kilometer radius and cause a lot of damage. It's going to be too late. Yun Jian saw the countdown timer on the time bomb and suddenly said. The group of special police officers who were ordered to surround Yun Jian and try to drag Yun Jian out of here all stopped in their tracks. What was this girl talking about? The bomb will detonate in 5 minutes and 35 seconds. Do you think that just a few of you, who have never touched the latest AK-4 bomb, can defuse it? Then you're underestimating its power too much. Also, once this bomb explodes, it will cause huge damage within 2 kilometers. Which one of you thinks you can run 2 kilometers in the last 5 minutes? Yun Jian's words rang an alarm bell in everyone's head. It was too late to retreat now. At this moment, the experts surrounding the time bomb broke out in cold sweat. It wasn't as if they didn't know that it would be difficult for them to defuse the bomb with their abilities. But who were they? An expert. It was precisely this little bit of vanity that caused them to delay again and again. They wanted to defuse the bomb, so they didn't announce that they couldn't defuse the bomb and told everyone to retreat. Especially now that a little girl had appeared and said in front of everyone that they couldn't defuse the bomb. The bomb disposal experts were instantly enraged. One of the bomb disposal experts held his breath and roared at Yunjian. "Little girl, if you can dismantle it, then do it." These words were exactly what Yunjian wanted. She lifted her feet and walked over lightly. "No, we are experts. Something that even we can't do. How can a little girl like her do it? Let's hurry up and retreat." One of the bomb disposal experts continued to shout. However, before this person finished shouting, Yunjian had already arrived in front of the time bomb. This AK-4 time bomb was developed by one of the leaders of the Kosha mercenaries, Tiger Leopard. Tiger Leopard was her other expert besides Snake Lizard. After this AK-4 time bomb was developed, no bomb disposal experts were able to defuse it. However, how could she not know what Tiger Leopard had developed? Who would know that this AK-4 time bomb was hailed as the most difficult to defuse and the newest model? Shi Yunjian had easily deactivated the device within 10 seconds of the countdown. Chapter 291. If you don't want to die, then get out of my way. Yunjian's eyes suddenly sharpened. She raised her voice and shouted. That pair of deep eyes seemed to have the power to shock people. The experts who stopped Yunjian from defusing the bomb were stunned. No one would have thought that such an innocent little girl would suddenly shout in protest. "There's no time left. If you continue to delay, then fine, we might as well die now." Yunjian suddenly stretched out her hand, and a butterfly knife appeared between her fair and slender fingers. As she spoke, she was about to use the knife to touch the time bomb that was still in the countdown. Everyone present raised their voices. No one thought that Yunjian would make such a move. She actually dared to threaten them. One must know that time bombs were the most difficult to defuse. If they were careless, it was very likely that it would explode in advance. "No. Stop. Stop. We agree." Facing Yunjian's close threat, even the experts who refused and mocked Yunjian for being a little girl couldn't help but shout out. There was no one present who wasn't afraid of death. Everyone was afraid of death. But in the face of immediate death, or putting their lives in the hands of a little girl who might still have hope, everyone wisely chose the latter. Moreover, there was no better way now. A group of bomb defusing experts who cared about their reputation had already delayed the final evacuation time for the sake of their so-called reputation. When Yunjian heard this, she casually put away the butterfly knife and then walked to the time bomb. The countdown timer on the time bomb was still rapidly changing. Now it showed. In other words, there were only 3 minutes left before the bomb would explode. To her, 3 minutes was enough for her to sit down and drink a cup of water to moisten her throat. It was enough time to defuse the time bomb, because this AK-4 time bomb was from her Kosha mercenaries. If she wasn't familiar with it, who else would defuse it? However, when Yunjian reached out to defuse the bomb, everyone's hearts tightened fiercely. However, the girl's petite body leaned forward. She reached out and deftly removed the detonator with her fingers. At this moment, exposed in front of everyone were several red, yellow and blue detonator wires. All bomb disposal experts knew how to remove the detonator that Yunjian had done earlier. However, the next step was the hardest to choose in the process of defusing the bomb. There were so many red, yellow, and blue detonators mixed together. Choosing the right one to cut was like winning the lottery. If he didn't cut it, the bomb wouldn't be deactivated. If he had to cut it, which one should he cut? The reason why the bomb disposal experts didn't do anything was because they didn't know what the internal detonator of the AK-4 time bomb was like. If he reached out and cut the wrong time, the time bomb would automatically explode. If he cut it on the spot, it would cause a direct explosion due to the short circuit of the detonator. Therefore, this was a very difficult choice. Success or failure, whether or not this time bomb could be removed, all depended on this cut. As everyone held their breaths, they saw that Yunjian had already picked up a pair of scissors. She hooked the yellow detonator wire from the innermost part and reached out to cut it. "Wait, That wire is definitely not the correct one. One of the bomb disposal experts couldn't stand it anymore and spoke up to stop Yunjian. We've already confirmed that this yellow wire is definitely not the correct one. This bomb disposal expert explained to Yunjian with what he thought was a very unique opinion. Then he continued to speak. After all, you're not a real bomb disposal expert. We've defused bombs for so many years, so naturally, we have more experience than you. So of course you have to listen to our opinions. This bomb disposal expert didn't finish speaking. Yunjian smiled and looked at him. Is that so? The next second, she moved the scissors, and the scissors happened to be on the yellow wire. The moment she cut it, the yellow wire broke. You want to get us killed? The face of the bomb disposal expert who had lectured Yunjian instantly darkened. Everyone's expression was filled with fear. According to the bomb disposal expert, Yunjian had cut it wrongly. Chapter 292. Oh my god! We're done for. The moment the bomb countdown timer sounded, some of the people present had already covered their heads and laid on the ground. Everyone was cursing Yunjian. She was just a little kid. What was she doing here? Everyone here was going to be buried here because of her. At this time, other than Yunjian, who was standing still with her arms crossed, everyone around her, including the experts, was lying on the ground, trying to minimize the damage. The last 10 seconds of the countdown timer ended. The people lying on the ground with their hands on their heads remained in this position for a full 10 seconds. At this time, the group of people who were lying on the ground miserably thought that the bomb was going to explode suddenly heard the girl's melodious voice. Lying on the ground, is it fun? Everyone's nerves twitched violently. Nothing happened. They didn't die. The bomb didn't explode? This meant that the time bomb had really been defused. The group of people who stood up in a daze were instantly dumbfounded. Everyone couldn't help but gasp in their hearts. She had cut the yellow wire correctly. This also meant that if Yunjian hadn't appeared just now, all of them would have been buried here because of the expert's dictatorial decision. When everyone came to their senses, they took a deep breath and came back to their senses with lingering fear. Only then did they feel embarrassed. Especially the expert who had lectured Yunjian just now. His old face was flushed red. Little girl, thank you so much just now. If it weren't for you, we would have. A special police officer, who had been contemptuous of Yunjian, just now stood up. He wiped the cold sweat on his forehead and apologized to Yunjian. Before he could finish his sentence, Yunjian interrupted him. No need. With that, Yunjian frowned slightly and walked out. The people present wanted to say something, but when they thought of their actions just now, they didn't have the face to say anything. Everyone's faces were red as they watched Yunjian leave with extremely embarrassed eyes. After Yunjian ran out of the factory, her eyes narrowed fiercely. She raised her eyebrows slightly and ran in a direction. The person who set up the Kosha mercenaries' exclusive AK-4 bomb must not have gone far. The message she received from Gujunjian confirmed this point. Now Gujunjian was leading the army's special forces to surround the person who set the time bomb. They were currently in the direction Yunjian ran in. She ran in the direction she had judged. After running for about 3 to 4 kilometers, she soon saw a group of fully armed special forces soldiers surrounding a residential house in 4 directions. A group of neighbors who were watching the show stood around, but these ordinary people who were far away from the scene. These sarcastic people were afraid, but they couldn't help but be curious as they stood there looking at the scene. Yunjian heard a lot of gossips when she passed by. Hey, did you guys know that a family in the residential building in front of us has been taken hostage by a bad guy? Did you see that? Even the special forces soldiers. That's why they surrounded the residential building. I heard that the person is very powerful. He even set up a time bomb not far from here on Huda Road. But now that the bomb disposal experts have gone over, the bomb must have been defused. Someone seemed to have seen the whole process with his own eyes, as he bragged exaggeratedly. It was as if he was a witness to everything. Are you serious? Something like this can happen here? What should the family who was held hostage do? Someone shouted in panic. Chapter 293. It wasn't just the gossipy women in the village who liked to gossip when they got together. Even the rich women in the city could gossip when they got together. When Yun Jian walked past the two women, she couldn't help but sneer in her heart. Then, she walked towards the residential building that was surrounded by people. Because the people watching the show were standing far away, Yun Jian became very conspicuous when she walked away from them and walked towards the empty area where no one dared to go. Look, that little girl is actually going that way. Didn't you see the special forces lying in ambush all around? There are still bad people in that residential building. This little girl is too daring. The woman who was the most talkative couldn't help but brag in front of the crowd. Because of this woman's brag, the crowd became restless again. But no one stood out to stop Yun Jian and said, "Little girl, it's dangerous, come back quickly. Little girl, it's too dangerous here. Go back quickly." A special forces soldier from far away saw Yun Jian running over and thought that she didn't know the situation there. He waved at Yun Jian enthusiastically and stopped her from going any further. Yun Jian was already close to the residential building. Oh my God, this little girl doesn't know what's good for her. The special forces told her not to go over, but she still went over. If she doesn't believe the police, she won't even know how she died later. The woman from earlier started to evaluate from an outsider's point of view. That's right, that's right. The group of people around them echoed. That woman hid in the crowd. She suddenly felt like an omniscient god, who could explain everything to the people around her, who were too stupid to understand the situation. Let her pass. At this moment, a special forces soldier ran over like a gust of wind. This special forces soldier was the one who apologized to Yun Jian in the factory not long ago. When he saw Yun Jian leave, he felt that he had to apologize. After all, she saved all of their lives, so he chased after her. But who knew that Yun Jian would run so fast? He almost ran out of breath. Only then did he catch up with her. I'm Zhang Weiguo, a member of the Flying Tiger Special Police Force. The time bomb has been successfully removed, and it was this young lady who removed it. So let her go. Special Forces Zhang Weiguo shouted at the Special Forces soldiers as he ran. Zhang Weiguo's words were meant to help Yun Jian and help her get past the Special Forces. However, what he didn't know was that his words made everyone present dumbfounded. What the hell? The bomb was actually defused by this little girl? What about the bomb disposal experts? A young girl deactivated the time bomb. Is this realistic? Not to mention the ordinary people. Even the special forces were completely dumbfounded. Yun Jian was already standing in front of the residential building. She didn't seem to care about the shocked gazes around her. Instead, she stood in front of the special forces soldier who had kindly stopped her and asked him, "Do you have the grappling hook?" After knowing that Yun Jian was the one who removed the bomb, the special forces soldier was dumbfounded. He didn't react to Yun Jian's question at all, and just replied in confusion, "Yes." As he spoke, he took it out from his backpack. Yun Jian took the grappling hook and nimbly walked towards the residential building. Everyone knew that the family that was held hostage was on the 6th floor. Looking at Yun Jian's actions, was she going to use the grappling hook to climb up? Could she climb up? That was the 6th floor. Without any safety measures, how could she climb up with just a grappling hook? Chapter 294. While everyone was still in shock, they saw Yun Jian fling her flying claws and leaping onto the wall. Then, she used the power of the flying claws to hook onto the floor. Her petite and agile figure followed closely and hung in the air. It was as if she had a pair of eyes under her feet. She stepped on the uneven spots of the residential building agilely. After a while, everyone only saw a flash before their eyes. Under everyone's watchful eyes, Yun Jian had already climbed onto the wall of the residential building and arrived at the window on the 6th floor. The sight of Yun Jian standing by the window, without any protection, sent shivers down the spines of idlers who were standing afar. What would he do if he accidentally fell? As for the special forces below, they were glaring at Yun Jian who was above them. God knows how many ways they had thought of sneaking into the residential building to rescue the hostage. It wasn't that no one had thought of using the flying claws, to climb up to the 6th floor from the 1st floor. But no one dared to do it. Because no matter how good their physical fitness was, no one could climb up to the 6th floor, using only the flying claws. Unless they had more weapons and equipment. The special forces that had sneaked in by other means had yet to return. This result implied that the special forces that had sneaked up were most likely caught by the enemy. At this moment, Yun Jian had already flipped over and snuck into the window on the 6th floor that she had opened. She went up, she really went up. That young lady really snuck in. The crowd exclaimed. At this moment, the special forces surrounding the residential building began to move. After Yun Jian had snuck into the window on the 6th floor, a team of special forces ran up the stairs quietly all the way to the 6th floor. At this moment, Yun Jian, who had flipped over the window on the 6th floor, reassessed her surroundings. She saw a bed with a huge wedding photo hanging at the head of the bed. It must be the head of the household. It was obvious that this was the bedroom. The person who had kidnapped this family and planted the kosher mercenaries' unique AK-4 bomb in the factory was in the living room outside the bedroom. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes. Her footsteps were light and graceful, and she did not make a single sound. She came to the door of the bedroom, held the doorknob with her right hand, and flipped her left hand. She was ready to use a knife in case of an emergency. Yun Jian opened the door without making a sound. As soon as she opened the door, she took 2 steps forward. The sound of Yun Jian opening the door startled the criminals and hostages in the living room. Yun Jian seemed to have found the right position. The blade in her hand flew out at the same time. TSK TSK TSK. The sound of the blade piercing into the skin was bone-chilling. Before Yun Jian could see the appearance of the criminal, she had already found his position and launched the flying knife. And that criminal's skills were not weak either. The criminal rolled away at lightning speed, dodging Yun Jian's flying daggers, but he still suffered some injuries. It was only then that Yun Jian realized the situation. The criminal was also sizing up the little girl, who could sneak in without him noticing. Yun Jian realized that there were a few hostages tied up by the criminal. A man and a woman should be the owners of this unit, while a few men dressed like special forces were tied up beside them. Their mouths were covered with black tape. There was no doubt that the men dressed as special forces were sent by the underlings to investigate the situation. In the end, they did not expect to be caught by the criminals and tied up as well. What surprised Yun Jian was not this, but the fact that the criminal was a member of the kosher mercenaries. He was even a higher-up in the mercenary group. In spite of it, this person was Yun Jian's enemy. This person's codename was Hound, the subordinate of the previous boss of the kosher mercenaries. He currently occupied a position in the kosher mercenaries. There must be a reason why this person would come to Longmen City. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes, her gaze dimming. Then, she narrowed her eyes again, a glint flashing across her eyes. No matter what the reason was, he had set off kosher mercenaries' unique bombs outside, and almost caused a riot. He had violated the kosher mercenaries' rule. No one was allowed to cause trouble in the name of kosher mercenaries. It was obvious that Hound had violated this rule. Therefore she, Yun Jian, was going to clean house today. Chapter 295. Jie, Hound, who had been grazed by Yun Jian's flying dagger, squinted his eyes at Yun Jian. At the same time, he let out a sinister laugh. Just this laugh alone was enough to make one's hair stand on end. Among everyone present, other than Yun Jian, the tied-up man and woman, as well as the Special Forces soldiers who had infiltrated and were caught, had their mouths covered with black tape. Hound was considered the second in command of the kosher mercenaries. For him to be able to sit in the upper echelon of the kosher mercenaries, his identity and status were naturally not weak. Yun Jian's red lips curled up as she looked at Hound. The two of them looked at each other, neither making the first move. Yun Jian did not make the first move, because she knew that Hound was not weak. If she still had her physique from her previous life, she would naturally be able to defeat Hound in seconds. However, it was unrealistic for her to kill Hound in seconds now. Although Hound was not ranked on the international assassin ranking, Compared to Wolfblade, who had been killed by Yin Jian in seconds, Hound was many times more powerful than Wolfblade. Just as Yin Jian and Hound were looking at each other to see through each other's abilities, the Special Forces soldiers who were tied up on the ground and had their mouths covered with black tape widened their eyes. When they had infiltrated this place, they had fought with Hound. Naturally, they knew how terrifying Hound's abilities were. However, just now when Yin Jian had infiltrated the place, the flying dagger she had thrown could graze Hound. This meant that this little girl's abilities were definitely not ordinary. Even when compared to the sturdy Hound in front of him, he was not inferior at all. Of course, these Special Forces soldiers did not know that if Yin Jian recovered her physique from her previous life, Hound's skills would be like trash. He would be killed in seconds. Before a battle between experts, it was a test of mental fortitude. Yin Jian's mental fortitude had always been very good. She stood on the spot and looked at Hound, as if she was ready to fight at any time. She slightly curled the corners of her lips and maintained this posture. In the end, it was the Hound who couldn't help but speak first. He smiled sinisterly, and the scar on his face was very frightening. "You're not with the police," Hound said with certainty. At the same time, he looked at Yin Jian with an evil grin. After that, Hound paused for a moment, then laughed arrogantly. The capabilities of this group of Special Forces are simply too weak. This was mockery and contempt. As soon as Hound finished speaking, the Special Forces soldiers who were tied up on the ground and had their mouths covered started making muffled sounds. However, this was only enough to make them roll on the ground a few times. Hound's words were meant to distract Yin Jian. If Yin Jian was an ordinary person, she would have already fallen into the trap. Unfortunately, she wasn't. "Huh." Yin Jian's lips curled into a smile. However, just as Yin Jian finished sneering, the door of this unit was pushed in from the outside. Then, a large group of Special Forces soldiers who were waiting downstairs rushed in. Even the Special Forces soldier, who kindly told Yin Jian not to come over, was among this group of people. They obviously saw that the time was ripe, so they rushed in to capture the hostage. Tsk tisk. The group of people quickly surrounded Hound. However, Hound was not afraid at all. He then sneered at the Special Forces soldiers and said bluntly, "You Special Forces soldiers from Country Z are just SOSO. Ha ha. In the end, you still have to rely on a little girl to rush in here." Such provocative words infuriated the group of Special Forces soldiers even more. F*ck your mother. Someone from the Special Forces immediately cursed at Hound in a low voice. Yin Jian lowered her eyes. She raised her head slightly. That half-smile on her small face revealed a hint of viciousness. She looked at Hound and said directly, "Using the name of kosher mercenaries to cause trouble everywhere. Hound, don't you know the rules of the organization?" Just as Hound gained the upper hand, Yin Jian's sudden voice made everyone's eyelids twitch. Chapter 296. This little girl actually knew his codename, and she even knew the rules of the kosher mercenaries. Hound was stunned for a moment. As for the other Special Forces soldiers, they were all stunned. They were stunned, but not because of what Yin Jian said. It was because what Yin Jian said just now was not in Chinese. She spoke to Hound in Hindi. This group of Special Forces soldiers did not understand Hindi, but they were stunned because Yin Jian, a young girl, actually knew how to speak another country's language. And judging from her accent, she seemed to be speaking Hindi. After Hound recovered from his shock, he suddenly put away his ferocious expression, and his face became serious. He looked at Yin Jian with a murderous look in his eyes. He asked again, "Who are you? You don't deserve to know who I am." Yin Jian replied in Chinese this time, and her arrogant words shocked Hound and the other Special Forces soldiers again. Although Hound was a high-ranking member of the kosher mercenaries, his position was not the highest. He could occupy a position in the kosher mercenaries, but he could not become the eagle of the generation. At least, even if Yin Jian killed him today, the kosher mercenaries would not be affected at all. Damn it! Hound was not a person who acted rashly, but he was a person who could not stand provocation. This could be seen from the fact that he could not hold back and spoke first when he met Yun Jian's eyes just now. Yun Jian's arrogant words just now infuriated Hound even more. Yun Jian's expression did not change at all, but no one noticed that her lips were slightly curled. Hound's weakness was that he looked down on the weak. Moreover, he could not keep his cool, and was easily provoked into anger. As expected, Yun Jian's words to Hound in Hindi had already made Hound restless. Hound kept guessing Yun Jian's identity in his heart. However, the contemptuous words just now had completely ignited Hound's anger. "I don't deserve to know. You're courting death." Hound let out a low growl. After saying that, he raised his hand and clenched his fist. His fist was tight, and his huge and powerful fist made people tremble in fear. He clenched his fist and swung it at Yun Jian. "Be careful." Seeing this, the group of Special Forces soldiers couldn't help but gasp and shout at Yun Jian. Yun Jian, on the other hand, stood upright in the same spot. Her long hair fluttered in the windless room, due to the force of Hound's punch. Under the watchful eyes of the owners of the house, the man and woman, as well as all the Special Forces soldiers, Yun Jian spread out her arms. She leaned back and bent down to dodge Hound's punch from the side. Yun Jian's dodging was already dazzling to the eyes. Her speed was beyond compare. However, this was not the reason why he was shocked. Yun Jian exerted force on her feet, and her petite body flipped to the left. She had already retreated behind Hound. Hound didn't expect Yun Jian to be so agile. He frowned and the irritation in his heart intensified. If he didn't kill this little girl who spouted nonsense, and even said, "You don't deserve to know who I am," he would write his name in reverse. Anger and fury intertwined in Hound's heart. It was just that the difference between fast and slow was only an instant. In the next second, Yun Jian's arm was like a coiling snake's body. She curled around Hound's arm. Then, a scene unfolded before everyone's eyes. They saw Yun Jian grab Hound's arm. She suddenly used a lot of strength and directly pulled Hound's arm. She lifted Hound up and threw him to the ground with his back facing up. This move was so fast that no one could see it clearly. Hound didn't even have time to turn around. However, they saw Yun Jian on the other side reach out her fair hands and grab Hound's spine before he landed on the ground. Crack! A crisp and horrifying sound was heard. With a bang, the Hound fell to the ground, no longer making a sound. Twisting the spine that supported a person's body would cause a person to die instantly. And this method was the usual method used by the assassins and female secret agents in the movie. Chapter 297. Murder. Yun Jian had killed Hound. The man and woman, who were the owners of the house, fainted on the spot when they saw this scene. They had not fainted when they were kidnapped by Hound, but now they had fainted. Compared to the man and woman, the group of Special Forces soldiers had at least been exposed to this kind of thing before. In spite of it, Yun Jian, a young girl, had killed Hound in front of everyone. This was beyond their expectations. Firstly, it was because of her skills. Secondly, she did not show the slightest bit of fear after killing someone. Was she really as simple as her appearance made her out to be? At this moment, Yun Jian had already walked towards the group of stunned Special Forces soldiers. She stood in front of them with Hound's corpse behind her. She did not show the slightest bit of fear after killing someone. Instead, she looked at the group of Special Forces soldiers and said, "Let me introduce myself. I'm Yun Jian, codenamed Killer God. I'm a new Special Forces soldier under Gujunjian." There was no need to hide these things. This group of Special Forces soldiers in front of her were all from the regular army. At the same time, they were on Gu Yunjian's side. Yun Jian, Chu Ning, and the rest were the new talents of the younger generation that Gu Junjian had discovered. Hence, they were selected to join the Special Forces training camp as candidates. The successful completion of the previous mission also made Yun Jian and the rest official Special Forces soldiers. However, as of now they were not from the regular army. This group of Special Forces soldiers in front of her had undergone even more brutal training. They were talents who had been carefully selected. They were members of the special forces like Gu Junjian. Actually, there was not much difference. In short, Yun Jian and the rest were new recruits, while this group of special forces soldiers in front of her were veterans. After Yun Jian finished her self-introduction, the group of special forces soldiers in front of her were obviously stunned. Naturally, they did not expect Yun Jian to be a member of the special forces. Not long after, someone immediately shouted, "You're the girl under Gu Junjian, codenamed Killer God." A tall and lean special forces soldier pointed at Yun Jian and exclaimed. This tall and lean special forces soldier was called Zhou Datu. When Zhou Datu exclaimed, everyone's gaze turned to Yun Jian. "You know me?" Yun Jian raised her eyebrows and asked. Under the watchful eyes of the special forces, Zhou Datu looked at Yun Jian excitedly and said, "That's right. Yes. Last time, the mission sent by the higher-ups was very difficult. Even the experienced veteran special forces soldiers couldn't complete it. In the end, this mission was taken over by Officer Ge. I heard that in the end, it was led by a young lady with the codename Killing God. She completed the mission in just half a day." "That little girl is you, right?" Zhou Data looked at Yun Jian excitedly, waiting for her reply. Of course. All of the special forces soldiers present heard of course. It was said that the mission was accepted by a group of new recruits, and they completed it successfully in the end. However, they didn't know who the new candidates were. According to Zhou Datu, the previous mission with such difficulty was actually completed by this Yun Jian in front of them. Everyone could not help but be shocked by this. However, looking at the scene, Yun Jian alone killed Hound that so many of them could not handle. Just based on this point alone. Chapter 298. Yes, it's me. Yun Jian's voice was calm. No one could tell whether she was happy or sad. In spite of it, her answer stirred the crowd. I'm leaving now. It was only then that Yun Jian recalled that she had come out to defuse the time bomb, and had been out for so long. Her brother should be worried, right? Ah. Oh. Zhou Datu replied to Yun Jian on behalf of his brother at once. Yun Jian then lifted her feet and left the place. The people here didn't stop him. Yun Jian did not introduce herself just now to leave her name. She had killed someone in public after all. Even if Hound was a member of the Kosha mercenaries in her past life, she had to be registered at the police station for murder, according to Country Z's law. The main reason she had introduced herself was that she was unwilling to go to the police station. Her brother, Yun Yi, was still waiting for her to return safely. If she returned later, her brother would probably be worried. As for Hound, his death would not cause much of a stir. After all, death was a common occurrence in this line of work. Just like how Yun Jian was accidentally reborn into this body in her past life. It had been a long time since she appeared in public as the ace of secret agents, slaying God. It did not mean anything though. Even if she died, it would only cause a stir for a while before she disappeared. Times were changing, especially when it came to the assassin and secret agent ranking. The ranking could be changed at any time. Just like the death of Wolf Blade, who ranked 10th in the assassin ranking. Once his death was confirmed, the 10th place would naturally be replaced by someone behind him. The dominant position and identity would only last for a moment. Yun Jian had always left when she wanted to. Someone would take care of the aftermath at the scene. It was not something Yun Jian had to consider anymore. When Yun Jian walked back and saw Yun Yi and others at the side gate of De High School that was far away from the factory, she went up to them. Xiao Jian. Yun Yi had been worried about his sister. He had been waiting here for a long time, but he didn't hear the explosion of the bomb at the factory. He gradually calmed down. Now that Yun Jian had returned, he was even more relieved. Master. Zhang Xiaofeng ran over with Chen Sini and Ling Yichen. The moment they saw Yun Jian, they felt relieved. Zhang Xiaofeng returned to his original appearance. His attitude towards Yun Jian was also somewhat sarcastic. Master, what did you do when you went back just now? Did he go to defuse that ticking time bomb? Huh? Don't tell me you're really going to defuse a time bomb? Zhang Xiaofeng was actually just joking. However, Yun Jian had just run back, which was indeed very puzzling. Yin Jian did not reply. Just when they thought that she would stay silent, Yin Jian suddenly smiled with her eyes squinted. Her lips curled up as she replied, "Yes." With that, Yin Jian turned and led the way forward. Since something like this had happened in the school, the students who had escaped had naturally gone home. How would they dare to stay in school? Yin Jian's reply, however, stunned Zhang Xiaofeng and the others. Yin Jian had never spoken empty words. Since she had replied to Zhang Xiaofeng's half-joking and half-serious question, she had actually said yes? Had she really gone to defuse a ticking time bomb? When Zhang Xiaofeng and the others came to their senses, they ran with exaggerated steps to catch up with Yin Jian. Hey, master, wait for me." Chapter 299. Because of this incident, the New Year's literary performance organized jointly by First High School and Longmen First High School did not go well. But overall, it went quite smoothly. Of course, no one would have expected this to happen. And Yin Jian had a few days of normal life. However, Yin Jian was not idle these days because Snake Lizard had sent her another message not long ago. Those old fellows in the Kosha mercenaries could no longer sit still this time, and were planning something on a large scale. Moreover, Yin Jian, the real boss of the Kosha mercenaries, had not appeared for a long time. Those old fellows were probably going to revolt. When Yin Jian heard this news, she only narrowed her eyes slightly, and then let Snake Lizard continue to keep an eye on those old fellows. And it seemed like she had to make a trip back to the Kosha mercenaries' headquarters. Some things had to be settled as soon as possible. Those old fellows could no longer sit still, and so could she. After sitting in the top positions for so many years, it was time for those old fellows to change their positions. This week, Yin Jian had just returned home from the military training camp. When she opened the door, she saw Ce, who had disappeared a lot. Her eyelids twitched. She had not seen him for a long time, and sometimes she even wondered where he was. But when she opened the door and saw the person she was thinking about standing in front of the door, Yin Jian was still shocked. But her expression was still very calm, and no one could tell what she was thinking. "Why are you back?" Yin Jian tried to look normal. She felt that she had not seen him for a long time. "Why can't I come back?" Ce's handsome face came close to Yin Jian. He stood in front of the door, his long legs pressed against the wall, and his sharp eyes looked at Yin Jian. In the next second, he came forward, and his delicate face was less than 5 centimeters away from Yin Jian. "What are you doing?" Yin Jian took 2 steps back. She was about to step out of the door when Ce suddenly grabbed her wrist. Her cheeks were slightly red, but her beautiful black eyes were darting left and right. Ce looked at her, his breath just inches away from hers. The man's magnetic and pleasant voice came from the front. "Don't you want to know where I've been these days? Where you go has nothing to do with me." Yin Jian answered without even thinking. Then, she desperately shook her wrists, only to find that his grip was shockingly strong. Boom! Ce stared at Yin Jian with his beautiful eyes. He stretched out his long legs and kicked the door shut. He grabbed Yin Jian's wrist with one hand, and wrapped his other hand around Yin Jian's slender waist, pressing her against the door. "Are you crazy?" Yin Jian didn't know what was going on. She struggled for a while and her face was already rosy. Her small lips opened and closed, which was especially alluring in Ce's eyes. He followed his own path and directly covered Yin Jian's seductive small mouth. Yin Jian could only feel her lips being pressed against his icy lips. She was extremely shy, but her body didn't have the urge to push him away. Just as Ce was engrossed in kissing her seductive small mouth and pressing her against the door suddenly opened with a click. Then, there was the sound of the door being pushed open. It was just that since Ce had pressed Yin Jian against the door, the person at the door could not enter even if they turned the lock. Chapter 300. Qin Yiru would never have dreamt that the reason she could not open the door was because there were 2 people standing inside. Yun Jian was pressed against the door by Ce, who was kissing her forcefully. No matter how brave Yun Jian was, it was her first time doing something like this when she heard that Qin Yiru was at the door. She nudged Ce, signaling for him to go upstairs quickly. Ce leaned in with a grin, taking advantage of the fact that Qin Yiru was at the door and she could not scream. He planted a soft kiss on Yun Jian's cheek. His lips were cold, causing Yun Jian's cheeks to flush instantly. Finally, Ce went upstairs to his room under Yun Jian's push. Yun Jian did not continue to block the door that Qin Yiru was pushing. Instead, she reached out to open the door for Qin Yiru. Qin Yiru happened to be outside the door. She was shocked when she saw Yun Jian suddenly appearing in front of her. "Xiao Jian, why are you standing at the door?" Qin Yiru asked casually. "The door isn't working, so I came downstairs to open it," Yun Jian answered without looking at Qin Yiru with a sideways glance. Oh, Qin Yiru believed her, and came in with a bag of vegetables and some ingredients. Just as she entered, she saw Yun Jian's flushed cheeks. Worried that her daughter was sick, Qin Yiru ran over to touch Yun Jian's forehead, mumbling, "Xiao Jian, why is your face so red? Are you having a fever? Come here and let Mom touch your forehead to feel your temperature." "Mom, I'm fine. It's just a little hot in the room," Yun Jian explained with a blush, and found an excuse to go upstairs after that. Qin Yiru did not suspect anything, as she went to prepare dinner happily. To Qin Yiru, her current life was nothing bad. Her son was outstanding, and so was her daughter. Her job was going smoothly, and there were no more worries like before. Qin Yiru was genuinely happy now. Just as Yun Jian went up to the second floor, she was pulled aside by Ce. Don't do that." Yun Jian was like a little girl, afraid that Ce would do something weird to her just now, so she quickly spoke up. She did not hate what Ce did to her just now. Instead, she looked forward to it. She did not know what was wrong with her. Why was she behaving like an ignorant young girl with her heart racing? Seeing Yun Jian's reaction, Ce pressed his lips together and chuckled. I'm talking about something serious," he said. Did this mean that he would not do what he did to her just now? Yun Jian breathed a sigh of relief and pressed her lips together, swaying them in front of Ce's eyes. "Go on," Yun Jian said. "Kosher mercenaries. Do you need my help?" Ce's starry eyes were fixed on Yun Jian, who stood not far away from him. Her petite figure made his heart itch constantly. Yun Jian's eyelids twitched when she heard Ce mention kosher mercenaries, especially the meaning behind his words. She had never told Ce that she was the boss of kosher mercenaries, but why did Ce sound as though he knew everything? "What do you know?" Yun Jian furrowed her brows, her pretty little face frowning. Ce imprinted her furrowed brows in his heart. He could not help but reach out to touch her little face, and say something that made Yun Jian extremely shocked. "Nothing that I want to know can escape my eyes. I know everything about you." His words were very ambiguous, but it made Yun Jian's eyelids twitch. He knew everything? He knew everything about her? How far did he know? He knew that she was the boss of kosher mercenaries. Chapter 301. Looking at Yun Jian's face contorted when her secret was exposed, Ce could not help but pull her close to him. He thought this way, and he really did it. Ce pulled Yun Jian into his arms. The girl's milky scent wafted into his nostrils, mixing with her slight body scent. Ce pursed his lips into a smile. Yun Jian nudged Ce. Since Qin Yiru was cooking downstairs, she did not dare to make too much noise, so she could only bury herself in his body. Fortunately, she did not dislike the scent on his body. It was a faint warm feeling with a hint of sweetness, like bee candy. Hugging the girl's petite frame, Ce did not ask any more questions. At this moment, nothing was more important to him than her. Ce only let go of Yun Jian when Qin Yiru finished cooking dinner. During dinner, Ce sat close to Yun Jian. "I eat more. This fish is fresh. We just bought it from the market. Eat more." During dinner, Qin Yiru even picked up food for Ce. In the end, she could not reach Ce and Yun Jian, so she had to let Yun Jian help Ce. Yun Jian blushed slightly, Every bit of food she picked up for Ce was swallowed by him without hesitation. Even when Yunjian purposely picked up a few extra pieces of fatty meat for him, he swallowed them all without a hint of disdain. This made Yunjian feel helpless. On Saturday morning, Yunjian woke up before the sun rose. Ce was already waiting for her at the door. For the past few days, whenever Yunjian went out for a morning run, Ce would always tag along. Today was no exception. Because it was the weekend, Yuni happened to come home this weekend. Early in the morning, Yunjian tied her hair into a high ponytail and was full of energy. Yuni also woke up early today. Usually, Yuni would sleep until 9 in the morning. Today, Yuni woke up before 5 o'clock. At this moment, Yunjian was still tying her shoelaces on the first floor. Ce was standing beside her, staring straight at her. "Brother, where are you going so early today?" Yunjian felt strange and asked aloud. "Today is our class reunion." Yuni put on a pair of clean white shoes and walked out. He turned to bid farewell to Yunjian and Ce and left. Yunjian narrowed her eyes. After tying her shoelaces, she stood up and stretched before going out for a morning run. Ce kept following her. There were not many people who went out for a morning run in the morning. Most of the people who went out for a morning run were elderly men or women. It was rare for young people like Yunjian and Ce to go out early in the morning to exercise. After walking past a park and passing by a pavilion, Yunjian sat down to rest for a while. Ce was afraid that she would be thirsty, so he ran to a small shop nearby to buy her a bottle of mineral water. The two of them sat down in front of a small pavilion that was used to cool off in the summer. Behind the small pavilion were a few large trees. Behind the trees was a public toilet built from a low hut. At this moment, a few girls were standing in front of the toilet. The girls were talking very softly, but Yunjian could still hear them. Originally, Yunjian was not interested in what they were talking about. However, as the girls were talking, they suddenly mentioned a name that caught Yunjian's attention. "Hey, did you guys know? Chen Yubing from the 3rd class is going to do something big tonight." "What do you mean something big?" "Hehehe, she only told me about this. You guys better not spread it out. It's that senior Yun-E from the 1st year of high school. Do you guys know him?" "Hehe. Chen Yubing likes that senior Yun-E, but he doesn't seem to be interested in her. So tonight, Chen Yubing seems to be planning to give herself to him. She's thinking that what's done can't be undone. When the time comes, she won't have to be afraid that he won't admit it. Otherwise, she'll go to his house. Is this for real?" Chapter 302. Yunjian was just resting with Ce in the pavilion, but she didn't expect to hear her brother's name and Chen Yubing's name. Chen Yubing was planning to offer herself? What's done can't be undone. That meant she was planning to hit on her brother. Yunjian suddenly realized that her brother had woken up so early today to attend a class reunion. Since it was a class reunion, would Chen Yubing be there too? If that was the case, then it made sense. Chen Yubing was planning to take advantage of the class reunion to make a move on Yun-E. Hehe, of course it's true. I even heard that a few classes are attending this class reunion. Chen Yubing was the one who organized it. Although it sounds like a class reunion, it's actually Chen Yubing's scheme to trick senior Yun-E. The two girls didn't realize that someone had overheard their conversation. On the contrary, since there was no one around them, they didn't try to cover up their conversation as much as before. "Will senior Yun-E be there?" the other girl asked curiously. Of course, the girl who had been bragging became even more enthusiastic. It was as if she wanted to tell the other girl everything she knew. Chen Yubing is really something. Although she's not in the same class as Yun-E, she knows people in her class. She secretly asked her classmates to invite all the students to the reunion. She didn't let anyone know that she was the one who organized it. Then won't senior Yun-E be tricked? The other girl interrupted. That's right. After the two girls finished whispering and walked away hand in hand, Yunjian, who was standing in front of the washroom where the two girls had been, finally revealed a trace of ruthlessness. She pursed her lips, and a shrewd look flashed across her eyes. "Ce, who was standing at the side, placed his hands lazily in his pockets. A trace of viciousness flashed across his handsome face. She dared to touch his brother-in-law. That woman called Chun something Bing? Was she looking for death? If Yin Jian could hear Siyi's thoughts, she would definitely not be able to hold back her sarcasm. When did her brother become his brother-in-law? Are you going back? Yin Jian turned around. Her beautiful and delicate little face was facing Siyi, and her long eyelashes fluttered up and down. The meaning of her words was very obvious. Of course, she couldn't leave Yinny alone. She was asking him if he wanted to go with her. I'll go with you. Siyi turned his handsome body to the side. He lowered his head to look at the girl, who was a head shorter than him, and smiled brightly. Oh. Yin Jian nodded and said, let's go home now. You drive. Yinny had been out for some time. If Chen Yubing was really prepared, she should still be able to make it in time if she rushed over now. Although the two girls had said that Chen Yubing was planning to give herself to Yinny at night, Yin Jian felt that with Chen Yubing's personality, as long as Chen Yubing fell for her trap, Chen Yubing would immediately make her move. Yin Jian's guess was right. Chen Yubing was indeed planning to make her move when she had her way. At this moment, Yinny was already singing with her classmates at a karaoke bar. They had been having a gathering for some time, although there were also classmates from other classes, such as Chen Yubing. He didn't feel that there was anything wrong with it. Chapter 303. The moment they heard that they were going to play a game, the group of students who were already tired from singing karaoke immediately perked up. Juju, what game are we playing? A boy asked the girl who suggested the game earlier. The girl called Juju, who wasn't particularly pretty, replied to the boy. Following that, Juju glanced at Chen Yubing, who was sitting quietly not too far away, but was extremely agitated. Finally, she said to everyone, don't worry, I'll decide on the rules of the game. Don't worry, I guarantee that it'll be fair, fun, and exciting. Juju was Yin Yi's classmate. At the same time, everyone thought that Juju was the one who organized the party. In fact, Juju was a girl who was bought over by Chen Yubing. After she was bought over by Chen Yubing, she immediately helped Chen Yubing. For example, when Chen Yubing wanted to organize the party, Juju stood out and made everyone think that she was the one who organized the party. Seeing that Juju was following her plan step by step, Chen Yubing, who was hiding in the corner, couldn't help but smile. Hee. Yinny said that he didn't like her? Then she would make him have no choice but to like her. So what if he didn't like her? Once they were done, even if Yinny didn't like her, he would have to take responsibility for her. At that time, even if his powerful sister, Yun Jian, wanted to do anything, it would be nonsense. Moreover, Chen Yubing had already planned everything out. Even Yin Yi's mother, Qin Yiru, would be invited to the party after she and Yinny were done. This way, she wouldn't have to worry that Yinny would deny it. Juju was a girl who knew how to talk. Although she didn't look very good, she quickly moved the crowd. Everyone has to participate. We're a team. With Juju's words, Yinny, who didn't want to participate in the game, was also urged by the other boys in the class to participate. Su Haokol didn't come today, because he had something to do. As a good friend, Yinny naturally understood. Yinny was a little against this kind of game, but under the boys' urging, she still participated. The game that Juju was talking about was actually very simple. Everyone would sit together in a circle, and in the circle, there would be a turntable. The turntable would be turned by Juju, and in the end, whoever the turntable turned to would have to draw lots. This lot was drawn from a pile of folded paper. The punishment was written on the paper. Generally speaking, whoever the wheel reached would have to draw a piece of paper from the pile of paper, with the punishment written on it. If it was blank, it meant that he would not be punished. However, if the punishment was written on the paper, he would have to follow the instructions written on the paper. Juju was an old hand at manipulating the abacus. She deliberately manipulated a few people, and in the end, the abacus fell on Yunyi. Then she drew lots for Yunyi. She had switched these pieces of paper with the same content written on them. When Yuni opened the paper, she saw the words written on it, "Drink a glass of special wine." Wow! At this moment, everyone saw it and shouted, because this glass of special wine was made by mixing all kinds of fruit juice and all kinds of wine together. It was a dark cuisine of fruit juice and wine. It tasted terrible, but it was also the highlight of this game. Whoever was unlucky enough to be pointed by the turntable and draw this piece of paper would have to drink this terrible glass of wine. Drink it! Drink it! Drink it! Yuni was unlucky enough to fall for it. Everyone followed suit. Everyone wanted to see a good show, so they shouted even louder. Helpless, Yuni could only pick up the glass of fruit juice and wine and drink it in one gulp. There was a burning sensation, and the smell was extremely unpleasant. However, because of this, Yuni didn't notice the unusual taste in this glass of wine. Chapter 304. Yuni felt a little dizzy after downing the cup of specially made wine. He wasn't used to drinking, but because this was a group game, he drank it down. Juju kept the game going, and Yuni didn't get turned. Chen Yubing, who was sitting opposite Yuni, kept staring at him with a burning gaze. "Hey Yuni, you don't look so good. Why don't I send you home first?" Just then, a boy suddenly spoke up. This boy was actually someone who had been bribed by Chen Yubing. His name was Zhao Yishan, and he was Yunyi's classmate. In this era, people who weren't particularly rich, especially students who were studying in school, were easily bewitched by money. Chen Yubing was smart enough to take advantage of this. "Yeah, Zhao Yishan, send him home first. Don't let anything happen to him." Juju pretended that she didn't know anything. She blinked and gave Zhao Yishan a look. When Zhao Yishan saw this, he didn't care whether Yuni answered him or not. He walked over to support Yuni and left. Yunyi's tall body was supported by Zhao Yishan, who was thinner and weaker than him. Yuni felt that his throat was very dry. His eyes were a little dazed, and his body was a little hot. He was supported by Zhao Yishan and left the place. Zhao Yishan supported Yun-Yi and walked out. He gestured to Chen Yubing twice, meaning that he was going to take him to the place they had planned. Come, come, come. Let's continue playing." Juju tilted her head and saw Yuni being supported by Zhao Yishan as they walked out. She revealed a big smile. She could almost see the reward Chen Yubing would give her after the game was over. The other students didn't notice Yun-Yi's abnormality. After all, everyone was in high spirits at this time, so they started a new round of the game. Not long after, Chen Yubing also found an excuse and left. Yun Jian and Ce ran home on foot. Ce started the Lamborghini and drove straight to the karaoke bar. Fortunately, Yuni had told her the address of the karaoke bar they went to in the morning. Therefore, Yun Jian did not need to check and went straight to that place. It was one of the few karaoke bars in Longmen City. The KTV of this era was called karaoke. It was a place for serious singing, but at the same time, it was also a place where crooks mixed in with honest folks. After checking the address of the private room at the front desk, Yun Jian went straight there. Outside the K-18 private room, Yun Jian had already found out that the private room Yun-Yi and the others had booked was this K-18. She walked side by side with Ce. As she was closer to the door of the private room, she lifted her leg and kicked it open. Bang! The sharp eyes of the group of people who were playing with the roulette behind the door jumped for a while. Who's there? Facing Yun Jian, who had suddenly kicked the door open, the group was startled. Just as they focused, they saw Yun Jian and Ce walking in side by side. "Hey, isn't this Yun-Yi's younger sister?" Someone recognized Yun Jian and asked. Hearing that it was Yun-Yi's younger sister, Juju, who had just done something wrong, dodged guiltily. Yun Jian caught Juju's evasive gaze and looked around. Seeing that her brother was not in the room, she lowered her gaze and asked, "Where's my brother?" I think Zhao Yishan sent him home. Your brother doesn't seem to be feeling well." Someone answered at once. "Not feeling well?" Yun Jian scoffed and strode to Juju. Reaching out, her cold fingers grabbed Juju's throat. "You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.